Well, there was so many people sitting there saying, that goat farmers were getting rolled up into becoming sent to Guantanamo Bay when they weren't really terrorists and everything. I was like, look, man, y'all don't understand the
Yeah.
logistics that goes into getting somebody into Guantanamo Bay. And I quickly learned that most all the people there were high up on somebody's food chain in some terrorist group or agency or a money person or something like that.
So it wasn't just some low level.
Yeah, there was no
Those
low level. Everybody in there was at some, I would say, you know, they were decision makers or shot callers.
Battle Line podcast, and it is almost, I say it, it's a little embarrassing that 291 episodes in, we're finally having Jeremy Mitchell because I feel like this is a guy we probably should have had on within like the first 10 episodes and it just didn't happen. He's got plenty of stories.
Yeah.
Gitmo is back in the news because of all the stuff with detaining illegal immigrants and like the really bad segment of illegal immigrants in the country and the idea of like putting them in there. So if you want to hear the inside scoop from a guy who actually worked security at Gitmo, you do not want to miss this episode. You do not want to go anywhere. We cover a lot of ground. Before we get into it, Bubs, Naturals, the weather is getting much warmer here, and I'm trying to go for my early morning runs. And when I get back, I want to take some Hydrate or Die. There are more and more hydration products on the market, but I have to say Hydrate or Die is my absolute favorite. I love the lemon flavor. And you're getting that Himalayan pink salt into your body, the electrolytes, without all the crap, without like all the sugar, artificial dyes of Gatorade and rehydrating. So that's my number one
Oh,
product
it's
right now from
fantastic. And they've
Bubs.
and they've got vitamin C. They've come up with vitamin C now you can get for them. And of course, I still use the MCT oil and the collagen. And it does. It has extremely helped me with my recovery, with my new hip, my new quad. And guys, I'm almost back to running again. But I mean,
Nice.
I'm putting a weight vest on and walking up and down
Nice.
stairs. And no, it's amazing. Granted, the orthopedic surgeon, thank you out there in Galena, my orthopedic surgeon, but the collagen protein and definitely the MCT oil every day in my coffees have been amazing. I've been on 3 years, almost 2, 3 years, yeah. And no, there is a definitely remarkable difference. And my hair and my nails are still growing. I mean, I got a little gray hair, but I thought I'd have more at 55, and it does. And so it's amazing stuff. Bubs is fantastic. And if you're not taking Bubs in some form, whether it's the pink salt, the hydration, hydrate
Hydrate
or
or Die,
die,
which is the
hydrate or
greatest
die.
name.
I haven't tried the vitamin C yet, but I will. But the MCT oil or the creamer and especially the collagen, you're doing your body a disservice.
Yeah, and you're helping the Glen Doherty Memorial
Yes.
Foundation in the process, which helps out military families. So check it out, bubsnaturals.com. Use the promo code BATTLELINE and you'll get 20% off as a first-time customer on your first purchase. Bubsnaturals.com, promo code BATTLELINE. Go there now. With that, let's get into Jeremy Mitchell.
From Kansas City to New York City, from planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space, a podcast with no equal, engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto,
Switch is on, motherfucker, I'm gonna shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battle Line Podcast.
The Switch is on, Battle Line podcast, and if you've ever attended a Battle Line tactical course, then you know the guy who's on with us right now, Jeremy Mitchell, instructor with Battle Line Tactical, Army veteran, author, and it's almost embarrassing that 291 episodes in, we're finally having you on. In my defense, I was like, because you and Chris see each other every couple of months. I was like, oh, you should
Yeah.
do something in studio at some point, and it just never happened. So it was like, all right, let's finally have
Well, we
Jeremy
well
on.
we
So it's
we
great to have
lost. I
you.
mean, we did. Remember, we lost the.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I'm not gonna air somebody's dirty laundry, but our guy that would do the filming here, I don't know what happened, Jeremy. We don't, but he's no longer with
Yeah.
the company that we use. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what kind of sucked the last time he was here is we didn't have nobody to film it. We could have done it on the phone, but it really wasn't planned out very well. And me and Jeremy don't plan stuff very well together on the fly. So yeah,
You
so it
playing the
just didn't.
course as well.
Well, yeah, but that's not on the fly. I mean, we're those things are getting done, 6 months, 7 months. As soon as they're on the schedule, we're already planning. But him and I putting stuff together within 12 hours, no, shit, it will
Yeah.
fail.
Yeah.
No, it's not gonna
Yeah.
happen, man. So, but yeah, it's good
Yeah.
to see you, man. Unkempt as usual, which is another
Oh,
reason why we didn't have him on.
well, Lisa actually made me trim my beard up because it was all shaggy down here and
Yeah,
everything. And she said she made me take a shower, and I was like, "They can't smell me." And she
you
goes, "I
took a
can."
you took a shower? Did you brush your hair?
No.
Ouch,
So
shit. Ow.
Why
Ow.
brush it? It's just gonna get messed up again.
I mean, look, Chris knows you very well. I've hung out with you a number of times, like in
Yeah.
person, but and we've spoken about a whole lot of different things that I'm sure we'll get into. But I've really never heard your origin story, like what
Yeah.
inspired you to join the military, upbringing. Let's get into all that.
All right. Yeah. Cool. Oh, you want me to
Hit,
just start from the
Yeah,
yeah, hit
go
it,
beginning?
for it,
man.
man.
It's your stage. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, basically, before the military, I was a carpet installer, and I was doing that for several years. Me and Lisa got married. We were married for a few years, so it was one of those things where, she knew what she was getting into because the recruiter talked to her also.
What
And
what what age were you then, man? You
I
were
was
like 20s?
23,
All right.
23. Yeah, I
Wait, you were
believe
married
23
for
or
how
24.
long?
We were married since 1996.
Wait,
So
so
you
but
were
how
So,
old did you get married?
16?
oh, no, no. Well,
It
no,
is
yeah,
it
yeah,
is
yeah,
Alabama,
yeah.
dude. Come on.
Well, I got married. Yeah, we got married young and everything, but
Wait, how old? How old now?
Yeah, hold it. Don't hold
oh
back,
God,
dude.
I was married, or we got married in 1996, and I joined the military in 2000. Yeah, in 2000 because it was right before 9/11. Yeah.
You still have
So
not answered my question. At
you
what
were
age
trying
did you
to he
get
did he
married?
You're
they don't
asking a
do the math and
dyslexic
that so
person to
it
do
sounds like you
to
were
do math.
17. I'm trying to do the math.
No, no, I
17
was,
years old.
I was 20 years old.
Oh, all right.
So
Well, that's
that's
Oh,
not
that
what,
ain't
anything
bad.
that
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
I thought you were going to say
yeah.
16. All right, I've completely
No,
sidetracked the
no, 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 no.
story. Let's get back.
Yeah, all right. So anyways, joined the military in 2000. I believe it was early 2000s, and I did a delayed entry program.
Yeah.
And the reason why I joined is as much as I loved going to other people's places and working real hard, laying carpet and everything, was I needed a little extra money. So this recruiter that became a real good friend of mine, still a good friend of mine, Eddie Thornton, he's like, "Hey man, I can get you something where you only do 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. That's it, and you get a little extra money to spend on whatever you want." I said, "Cool, sign me up. Let's go." So he took me to do the ASVAB and everything, and he's like, "All right, you're pretty much an idiot, so we're going to make you military police." And I was like, "All right, cool. I don't
Oh
care."
shit, here comes the comments from the MPs that listen to the show.
Hey, they
Here it
know.
goes, man. Here
They
it
know.
goes.
You have to.
Hey, oh shit.
You don't have to score high on the ASVAB to be military police. They just want you to stand out there and absorb bullets. That's all they want you to do. But the anyway, so joined in 2000 and everything, think, hey, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, I can do this. And I got out in February 2001 because I did the delayed entry, and then at the end of 2000 I went into the basic combat training, and I did the advanced individual training, AIT.
AIT. Yep.
Yeah, right. I did them right there together, and we other than the Christmas break we had, but got out in February 2001 of the training, and I thought, hey, this is sweet. 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, and then 9/11 happened, and after 9/11, I was wearing a uniform for up till 2017, doing one thing or another, either
So
deployed or work.
was it Guard or Reserves that you
National Guard,
and
National Guard,
so
in the
so
Alabama National Guard. Yeah,
Alabama National Guard.
yeah.
So when 9/11 happened, did they so they okay, I'm losing my why am I losing? I can't talk either. Did they put you on active status for the next 2 years? I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
was your guard unit active basically activated? That's what they were saying.
yeah. And what happened for us, because I was actually, when I backtrack a little bit, when I came out of basic training, I had to do something. So I was put in for to become a police officer with Prattville Police Department in Alabama. And while that was going on, I just got a job as security guard because I was like, hey, I know how to do,
Yeah.
police stuff. So um then when 9/11, right, I was working that night, and when the or that morning, and when the planes hit, it was like within 5 minutes my phone was ringing, and all of a sudden they said, hey, report to the unit. So we go to the unit and we sit around for like 2 days at the
Wow.
unit,
Wow.
and then they sit there and say, okay, we're putting y'all on state active duty, and then you're going to be in charge of guarding armories. And everybody just trying to throw all this stuff together because they're like, where are they going to get the money to pay for it? Where are we going to put these guys? What's the most important thing to guard? And so from about I guess 16th of September to about 2 months, 2 or 3 months or whatever, we're just guarding facilities on state active duty, just kind of
Gotcha.
making it up as we go. And then all of a sudden they said, okay, we're going to put you on Title 32 on what's called force protection duties. And they shipped us up to what was Fort McClellan.
Yeah.
So Fort McClellan at that time was still going through the closure period. So a lot of it was closed off for a long time, but they still had a section set aside for the National Guard, right? So that's what we were training, or that's where we were stationed at, guarding that facility, that part of it.
So are you just you're just gate garden, or you or
Well, gate
is there
guard
facilities
patrols.
at like a was there armory facilities? Were
Yes,
secret top
yes.
secret?
No, no.
I've only been on McClellan. I mean, I don't think, but who knows? I mean, some of these bases you they're so nondescript, or you wouldn't assume anything would be there that there
Yeah,
is. They're
yeah.
hiding in plain sight. So
No, we were pretty much guarding the ammo supply point because that
gotcha.
stayed open. Pelham
Yeah.
Range out there on the other side of Fort McClellan, and we were guarding. Have you ever been to Fort McClellan ever?
One time. Yep.
All
One
right,
time we had to
so
go. Hmm.
we were on that back far side, close to the mount site. We
Yep.
weren't quite down by the mount site, but we are closer to that than the main base portion up where the MP headquarters were at and
Okay.
all that stuff. But anyways, so we were guarding that area, the ammo supply point. The mount site was still active. The and just the training area, because we're still pushing, they're ramping up soldiers to train them to not only do what we're doing, but they know something's coming down the
I'm
pike,
coming down the pipe. Yep.
right. The Now I will say that I don't know if you've ever read the book about Adam Brown called, I think is it Fearless?
Mm-mm.
Anyway, it's a story about this Navy SEAL named Adam Brown or whatever. But
I recognize the title. I've never read it
yeah,
though.
yeah. Well, the SEALs teams were coming out there training at Fort McClellan Mount Site, and that's one of our duties was to go out there and protect that area and make sure nobody interrupted that training and tried to,
I got you.
yeah. So, just little things like that. Just everybody's a terrorist. Card everybody, check everybody. Plus, they still had the OCS going on at Fort McClellan also.
Yeah.
So we're guarding those guys when they're going through OCS, or anybody going through OCS. And then I think it was, yeah, it was it September? Oh, we went to the Winter Olympics. They pulled us off of that for a little while, and we went to the Winter Olympics in Utah. Um, that was for 2 or 3 weeks up there to just go because they needed more manpower to guard the events going on out there. So they were pulling National Guard units from all the different states to guard different things going on at the Winter Olympics. And then after that, uh, that's when they said, okay, we're done with y'all. We don't need y'all in force protection no more. So everybody's kind of like, I guess we got to go find a regular job. And all of a sudden, that's when I got ramped up to go to um, Guantanamo Bay. And it actually started off, I'm sorry, that's when they ramped us up to go to Fort Benning. And then after Fort Benning, we went to Guantanamo Bay.
Because you're doing your pre-mobilization at
Right.
Benning, which is where a lot. How was the Winter Olympics? What was that like?
That
Garden.
for the most part, it was quiet because they were expecting bombs to go off because of what happened in Atlanta
Sure.
during that pipe bombing thing. So they thought for sure this is going to be a primary target. But for the most part, it was dull and uneventful. We got to go see some of the events because we were working the security and everything. So we got some of that behind the scenes stuff.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but we did get a lot of good training out of it that we didn't get anywhere else because that was my first time I got to do what's called joint training, where you train not only train with different military services, but you also train with multiple agencies.
Yeah.
And so they had like ATF out there. They had, I mean, all the alphabet soup guys out there, and we all got to train together. And they were, I mean, everybody was kind of learning at this moment, because not everybody trained on anti-terrorism. The National Guard, for the most part, before 9/11, only trained on the next attack is going to be a chemical attack. So we
Yeah,
only
yeah, because
trained
that
on
was the
chemical
anthrax
attacks.
scares and all
Yeah,
that.
Right,
yeah,
right,
yeah. Anthrax shots right here,
right.
right here.
So anti-terrorism stuff was just being, it was kind of new to everybody, and we had to cross train with different
So
agencies and
what
stuff like
kind of
that.
cross training did you do? I guess I've never asked you this before. Was it on the job training, or did you guys actually have days where you would go to a nondescript site or a mount site and then do
Right.
actual training?
Yeah, it was different times that whenever certain training became available to us as military police and of course infantry guys, and in Alabama we have the 20th Special Forces.
20th group. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
So we would cross train with those guys on stuff like, of course your combat lifesaver stuff, but they were also kind of learning different new techniques and stuff like that. But we with the different agencies, we as MPs were cross training with all the different local law enforcement. So we'd work here for a little while doing something, force protection or whatever, and then they pull us from that and they say we need you to go to this 2 week class or this 3 week class and stuff like that. So I mean, I got this I Love Me binder over there in my office that is just like all these certificates of different training I've been through. And it was just because they would just grab you and say, "Go learn this. Go. We need somebody to learn this."
I mean that's cool because it is cool put it on a resume and
Yeah,
in
yeah,
today's day and age. I think they're getting away from that, but maybe a few years back where it didn't really make a difference how much you knew. Is it do you have a cert from it? They make a difference
right.
if you learn shit from it,
Yeah, they
but do
just
you have
want
a
to see that
cert?
cert. Yeah.
But I think now it's getting back to where experience actually matters just as much, if
Yeah.
not more, than that degree or that certificate that I went through the training. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember back then that was a big deal. And if you didn't have the cert, you don't know what you're talking about, even though if you've done it for 20 years.
Oh
But
yeah, and we've run across all kinds of people like that that can have all those certifications and then no clue. I mean, and that's true for me for some because I can go look at some of those certifications. I can be like, I don't even remember taking that one.
I'm sure.
But
Yeah.
but for the most part, there was some things that did grab my
yeah,
attention. I was like, I love this. I want to learn it, and I kind of just dove further into it after the training. But there are also some things that I went too far down in the rabbit hole. And I thought, oh, I almost was on the verge of becoming what most people call preppers and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
And I had to reel myself back in and learn, hey, it's not that serious, man. It's not going to be like that.
They're
Come
not
on.
going to be. There's not going to be a,
Right.
a bomb going off every corner at the Winter Olympics like they think there is. I
Right.
mean, yeah, you
Right.
you
It
prepare
depends
for
though.
the
I feel like
worst.
some people are some people are like logical with how they do that, and then some
Sure.
people go insane. Like
Yeah.
working with Will Cow, you had, go bag with him and gas mask but I sort of get it. I mean, we were in the heart of Times Square. Like if something's gonna happen, it's gonna go down there. And if he has to go back to his family, you're gonna need something. So I get it. But then there's the people who are insane about it.
Yeah, like
Yeah. Yeah.
like building bomb shelters 20 feet
Yeah.
underground, and I,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be cool to have just as a cool little man cave, and
Yeah.
then just
A
but
place to go during
I
tornadoes.
think we
turn
know
turn.
people who have like we have a few friends who are like richer who listen to the podcast. Like I don't want to say names, but like I think that they have met like access to bomb shelters during
Oh
tough
yeah.
Yeah,
times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, they're got. I mean, they'll be the ones that laugh last if ever shit ever happens.
sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is their point. Do you really need to go down that far? But do you really hate on those people that do that? No, I mean I don't. I mean, like you said with
Yeah.
Wilco, I get it. Would
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do that? No, but
Mm.
oh,
But
yeah, I
it's the same
understand.
thing as people go, why do you need 25 guns or something? Or,
Exactly.
if that's what you're into, it's what you're into.
It's what you're into, and you're right. And we're talking with Jeremy threw that in about the tornado. Tornadoes, if people have been watching the weather, tornadoes are starting to move out of my area. You're getting more tornadoes a little
Oh
bit
yeah.
farther east. And he's like, yeah, we got a tornado warning. I said, you're in your basement? He's like, what basement? I said, you guys don't have a basement in tornado.
No.
You guys are losing your mind. So maybe you need to start prepping, dude, and go build
Yeah.
at least a bomb shelter.
Yeah, that was
And
that was actually at
you're at Tuscaloosa, weren't you?
yeah, Tuscaloosa, my
Yeah.
daughter's graduation. We were in the stadium and
That's crazy.
yeah, dude, I'm talking about the roof was shaking. I mean, you
Wow.
can hear it. It was horrible, and they told everybody, "He's like, all right, after you get your, because usually once they got there,
Yeah,
they walked across the stage
there's
and
certain.
everything. Everybody got to walk out and everything, right? And they said, just return to your seat, stay here for a little while. And I
Nothing
told,
wrong. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong.
yeah.
It's just
So
tornado.
I told Lisa, I said, I'm gonna go out here and see what it's like because it's probably like a mile walk to from where we were at to where we were parked at and everything. So I go walk into the door and it looks like there's just a waterfall just right outside the door and everything.
Wow.
I mean, you can't see beyond the edge of the about or the covered area. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty bad. And we're not going out in that. So I went back and told everybody that was with us that now we're going to chill out here for a little while and we're going to wait
Well,
for a good opening.
I learned the hard way, actually, like a year ago, that after totaling my car, you do not want to drive through high water, even if you have an SUV.
Hmm.
Did you did?
I
Oh
never really talked about this.
no,
I totaled my car on the way to driving to do Battle Line podcast,
no way!
the
I didn't know
episode with
that.
David Usick, because
No way.
water was just like, I mean, it was up to my waist. And I was like, I gotta get back to do this podcast. And I remember David even called me. He was like, we could cancel it if you need to. And I was
Wait,
like,
was
no,
he
I'm
in
gonna get.
studio? Was he in studio too?
No, no,
Right?
no, it was here. It
Oh,
was here. But
was he?
yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm taking us way off track. So we should, I don't know if we should get, if there's more to that or if we should get into Gitmo.
Well, I did want to because this is part of the Gitmo leading up is
Sure.
they're prepping you for all the physical stuff. So
All right.
the force protection, the site security,
All right.
and this is one thing. And this is for those that don't know, Jeremy has a book. He just wrote it.
Could I break your balls about this book? And I'm sorry to sidetrack you. Why did you name the book something that none of us will ever be able to pronounce? It's like phantasmagoric or something. Like marketing 101 is like you want a simple title.
Well,
here just so
and
everybody could see how you. I don't know how to say that either.
No.
Psychotasmorgate. Psychotasmorgate.
Why?
What?
Why?
Yeah, answer the
Because
question. Answer the question.
inside the book, it explains the breakdown of the word and what it means and everything.
I
Because
get it, but dude,
I did
from a
make the word
marketing
up.
perspective, you want to keep it simple.
Yeah, you're right about that. But I also wanted to be that grab the attention things like, what the hell's this? And let me open that front cover and look to see what it's
And
what it's
Jeremy
about.
is in charge of all battle line marketing. So there you
Yeah.
go. Awesome. But
All right, I took you off track, but
no,
yeah.
I get what I was getting into is and people don't realize and this is a rhetorical question with me and you, but for everybody else out there, it's not, is that they don't realize the psychological aspects that go in and how smart Al Qaeda is. Not smart,
Mhm.
but just crafty,
Oh
clever.
yeah.
How crafty the Taliban is, how crafty terrorists are, because they know they're not going to beat us in a straight up fight, but how they
Yeah.
play mind games and that was and then we even run a course at Battle Line where Jeremy does that like a Gitmo scenario, which guys should come. It's awesome. The Men's Alliance guys came to it. They were
I didn't know
fantastic. I mean,
that. Wow.
Mhm.
was it Men's Alliance that came to it? Who was the guys that came to
Oh,
it? Our guys from no, was
uh,
it? It wasn't Men's Alliance. It was our guys from the Ozark from Missouri.
On Me podcast
On Me
guys.
podcast. The
Yeah.
On
Oh,
Me
okay.
pod. They do a Men's Alliance thing, similar
Yeah.
thing. I'm sorry,
Yeah. They got
confused.
many different fires going on, but
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
But were they prepping you or preparing you for the psychological warfare that you're going to have to go on daily at the prison at Gitmo? Were you getting ready for that all? But I would assume no, and I know the answer, but because
Yeah.
we really didn't know, we didn't take their intelligence and their craftiness, their cleverness that seriously back
Yeah.
then. At least
Yeah.
that's my opinion.
Well, the majority of the training leading up to Guantanamo Bay was like it's like you said, it's like conveyor belt training.
Yeah.
It's just let's get them the very basics, get them through there. And this is before they started like pulling people from those that's been serving in that area for a while and saying, hey, tell them what it's like, been there for the last two, year and a half or whatever. But anyways, so we were getting the very basics of not only what was 95 Echo, 31 Echo, which is still military police, but it's the cage kickers, as we call them, the guys that work in prison. So we were kind of learning that aspect. And it was literally like, make sure you count all the spoons when you get them back and stuff like that. For the psychological stuff, it really, it was just, they were trying to train us how to not get mad when somebody throws, shit in your face or
Yeah.
cum in your face or whatever, and I mean, I got hit by multiple things like that throughout that
Jeez.
experience in Guantanamo. But
That's great. Yeah. Yeah.
they basically were training us like, so someone throws a cup of shit in your face, right? You can't get mad. You have to just look at them. You have to walk off the block. You have to go take your uniform off, because we always brought an extra uniform on the block with us.
Just in case you got shit or
Right.
come on you. That's
Exactly.
awesome.
So we throw the new uniform on, and of course we have mouthwash. We'd rinse our hair. We'd scrub up this little water hose and wash off real quick, and then we'd have to go right back down the block, look at the person that did it, and says, "How can I help you? What's wrong? Why are you upset?" You know. So
Is that right? I know what I'm gonna ask Ian this. Do you think that's right? I mean, I want your opinion. I think that's a bunch of horse shit, dude. But why, Ian, do you think that as a
I
civilian,
feel like I
do
don't
you think
know enough
that's
because is it meant to kind of I don't know, psychological thing? Because I was thinking about what's his name, General Mattis, where General Mattis was always very against waterboarding. And the reason he said he was against it is he said, I can get a lot more accomplished with a pack of cigarettes and just like give a
sure?
guy a cigarette and we could communicate. And he's probably going to give up a little bit more information with me, like getting down to his level. So I don't know if that's the thinking. I don't know because I am a civilian and I haven't experienced it where like the anger, I would assume like getting in the guy's face, it might not lead to getting any information that you're trying to interrogate these guys for.
well, I'll tell you this much, that when that happened, that was during Abu Ghraib is when I was down there.
Which,
So
yeah,
when that started coming out and everything. So there was also in Guantanamo, everybody kept talking about you're waterboarding, you're torturing them, and
Yeah,
there was
we'd hear
nothing
that
like
all. I
that
mean, you
going.
hear that all the
Yeah,
time, and it was bullshit.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
none of that was going on. We were watching the news and hearing people tell us what we were doing, and we're like, y'all don't understand. If we forget to give them the right servings, we get in trouble for, if we don't give them enough serving on their food and everything. When they're in Guantanamo, that's where what you were talking about, Ian, where they're trying to sit them down in a room and have that pack of cigarettes with them and eat that meal with them. And, there are some things they did to soften them up before that, but it was never waterboarding or anything. It was just other psychological things. And
well,
going
it's
to your,
funny when we had Edsel Dope on the podcast the first
Yeah, I was
time,
gonna say the
it's well
same.
known
Yeah.
because it came out, they blasted certain music, including Dope. And that's why I
Mhm.
asked Edsel Dope about it. And he was like, yeah, I love the fact that we were playing
I,
at Gitmo.
That's a
Like,
great song too. I have it in my
yeah.
workout list. I just listened to
I
it at the
can't, li-
gym.
I cannot listen to Delta Dawn without getting the
Yeah.
heebie-jeebies. I'm telling you, because they would play Delta Dawn, Metallica, and it just whatever song they had with
I think the
Metallica
whole
going.
list you could find online, the whole like
Yeah.
Gitmo playlist.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it was all three at the same time and everything. But this was for people who don't understand what was happening and everything. And I didn't understand at the time. Now I do. After several years of training and stuff like that. But at the time, I didn't know. But what they were doing, softening them up, was they had to keep them awake. So
Yeah.
if you bring them into a room to
Sleep
prepare them for
deprivation.
questioning, and a civilian, here in the United States, and civilian side, you put somebody in a room, leave them in there for an hour because you want them to be stuck in their own thoughts. And if they fall asleep, that tells you something. So that's a whole different thing.
What does
But
that
in
tell
quant,
you? Tell me what that. No, come on, tell me. What
well,
does that
so
mean if they
like
fall?
if you put somebody in a room and they start getting really comfortable and going to sleep and everything, most people are like, oh, it's because he realizes he's, not guilty. He's like, no, he realizes he's guilty. He's got caught. He's just relaxing because he knows he's about to be in a jail cell and he's going to be
Right.
in there for hours with people screaming and yelling, not going to get much sleep and everything. So that's what that means. You put somebody that you suspect of a crime or something like that in a room for a couple hours and you kind of watch their body language, everything. If they start relaxing, getting some sleep, putting their head down and everything, you can be like, yeah, that's pretty much telling me I'm on the
Oh,
right track. I got the right person, you know?
Well,
okay.
isn't it like also just the psychological, torture for lack of a better word of putting them through that? Because, like for example, I read the book A Place Called Waco by David Thibodeau, and for those who don't know, David was one of the members of the Waco
The
group.
Koresh, the
Right.
Koresh,
Yeah,
David Koresh
yeah,
guy. Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
actually it's weird. He was the drummer for Koresh's band because
Oh, I saw
Koresh
the
originally had a
documentary.
band.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so when the ATF was trying to get them to evacuate the home, they were just blasting music all
Yeah.
throughout the night, hoping, all right, we're gonna we're going to really get these people annoyed to the point where they're going to say, I need to leave here. This is too much.
Yeah, and it all depends on your definition of torture, but yes, it's all
Sure, exactly.
psychological uh games basically. But
Does it work? Does music? I've never seen that we're blasting music. Actually, I think it has, like you were saying, you were getting tired of it. It has a detrimental effect on the actual guards. It affects them just as much as it
yeah,
affects the detainees. Because I don't want to hear the same damn. I don't want to sit here in my car and listen to the same music over and over
exactly.
for an hour.
Yeah.
So
It does because it's all about sleep too. So you're trying to keep the person
sleep
awake. And that's
deprivation,
what I
sure.
was in Guantanamo. It's not only about annoying in their sense of hearing and stuff like that, it was also about keeping them awake, because if you put them in that room and they're sitting in that chair and they're waiting for a while, they're going to try to go to sleep. And your whole thing was keep them awake because the longer you can keep somebody awake, the more susceptible they're going to be to wanting to talk to you because they're wanting to open up. So for an example, so you put somebody in there, you got that music going for a few hours, um you're stressing them out, you're stressing their mind out, you're keeping them up, all this other stuff, right? You have the interrogator that would come in and he'll start sitting there like, I'm going to ask you some questions. Now, this isn't how it happened every time. This is just different. There's
Sure.
different ways to go after different people, and I didn't know that at the time, but they did a full evaluation on this person and said, this is how we're going to go after this person. Right. Anyways, so you keep him up and everything. He goes in there and starts questioning. I want to know about this. I want to know about that. And most of the questions they're asking, they already know the answers to. Right. So and all of a sudden here comes this attractive woman and a guy in a nice suit comes in the room and they just start cussing everybody. They're cussing me out as the guard. They're cussing out the interrogator.
This is a
This is not
plan.
how,
This is a
yeah,
scripted a
this is
script.
all
Gotcha, gotcha.
scripted plan. This
Gotcha.
is all scripted plan. This is not how we treat people. Da 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 da. And so now those two people become his rescuer.
Just a good cop, bad cop.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that's what it is. You have to break down the mind because let's face it. I know, you as a ranger, Chris, you have many nights where you're out there tired. I think you told a story about
Yeah.
you were carrying your weapon on your back and you're just so tired. And at some point, you were just, I didn't even realize I was still walking.
Well, you
Just
zombie.
keep
I mean,
going.
everybody does. Sleep deprivation is
Yep.
it's sleep deprivation is it's not it just sees how to us it's how far you can go. What can you do? How
Yeah.
far you can push yourself. It's not a torture. But
Yeah.
and when you say susceptible, it's not you're not more susceptible. You just your brain isn't as fast as it usually is. So when somebody's
Right.
asking you a question, it's harder to think up of a lie
Oh, yeah.
and be truthful and be as convincing on that lie because you're just so tired.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I get that, and I don't think I heard stories. I remember reading. I was in Iraq at that time, and I read a story. It was from I don't know which news organization calling that torture, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh shit!" All these Rangers at Ranger Corps being tortured right now, guy. I mean, that's
Yeah.
it's like sleep deprivation, my ass.
Even
But that
even your newly entry soldiers in basic training going without sleep. It's
what
like this
should
is
you
not
have?
torture. It
It's
sucks,
not
but it's not
torture.
torture.
First night, man, at
Yeah.
30th AG of Benning. Well, when you were there, so I guess I want to get back to we skipped it with throwing shit in fecal matter
Right, right.
and throwing shit literally and cum and whatever spit in your face. Were
Yeah,
they trying to elicit a response? Because I was that was my next question. You answered it. Was it during Abu Ghraib, which you said it was?
right. Yep.
Um, were they trying to elicit a response to get you to do something physical because they knew if you did that some media outlet, some whistleblower is going to find out, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're getting, the Gitmo, everybody's getting beat, they're getting electrodes to their testicles, or
Yeah.
was that what they were trying to do? Was get you to get to physically put a mark on them, to physically hurt
Oh
them,
yeah. Yeah, that was actually part of it because the Red Cross was there constantly. So they
I was,
would
yeah, oh,
pull
jeez,
they'd pull random people and they'd schedule people to talk to and everything. But it was that and it was just a game for them too because they were just sitting here like I'm bored, so let me do this, but also trying to get you into the cell also. um, Not only for you to beat them, but hey, how can I do something to him? Because there was plenty of military or guards and everything that had their wrists or fingers broken because when they'd reach through the food tray to give them their food, the detainee would grab their wrist and then pull it down on the thing and break
yeah.
it and break their wrist. So it was like a game, and they were. I think there was one time when we were doing intel collection in the cells where you search the cells, look for anything we found a piece of paper and somebody was actually tracking scores on that block of who did what to what MP. We had our because this is when we were wearing BDUs, right? So we had our name tapes. We had a piece of tape over that because sometimes that would come off. And you got a real high score if you figured out the MP's name, right? For a long time before they figured my name out, they called me Sergeant Squeaky Boot because my right boot, because you remember we used to polish the boots black, and
Yeah.
if you didn't, anyways, that leather boot would squeak every time I take a step with my right leg, and so they called me Sergeant Squeaky Boot because all I did was squeak, 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 because I'd have to walk up the block and down the block, up the block and down the block, and they got annoyed with me over that, and I was thinking about trying to fix the boot for a while, and I was like, you know what, fuck y'all, I'm just gonna let it squeak, you know. I didn't
Well,
deal with them too.
that's torture. I mean, just annoyance right there. Now,
Yeah.
the you know, did anything that you saw, and you can might skip around a little bit, but did Gitmo did we get anything that you saw from Gitmo? And you did start to do your own interrogations. You went from being security to doing some helping out with some or am I incorrect on
Well, helping out in an unofficial manner because when we get to, because you had different jobs throughout Guantanamo. One of them is you could be working the sally ports, or something, or work, like I said, working the block, walking up and down the block, or escort to their interrogation. And sometimes the interrogators, whatever agencies they work for. So when I say interrogators, I know different agencies call them different
yeah.
things, but I'm just using interrogators, a generalization. But they would pull us and they'd sit there and they'd talk to you for a minute. They'd get a good feel of who you are and everything. And I mentioned one time to somebody, I mean, I just started soaking this stuff up. I loved it, right? So they would pull you in there and say, "Hey, we need you to do this." So you'd go in there, you'd take your uniform off and you put on a button-up shirt, some blue jeans and stuff like that, and you just sit there and kind of, either take notes or you would take part in it. And I'm learning as I go through this process, but one of the things was, you're the idiot. So like I would sit there and say, "Well, what about this?" He's like, "No, no, no, we're not worried about that," or "Don't say that." So the interrogator's using me as a prop, you know.
Right.
But so I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I loved it because I learned so much being in the room. But anyways, um, did we get anything from him? So the best example I can give you was there was one guy there. He was there for 4.5 years, and everybody told us to leave him alone. All the detainees that were on his right and left would say, "Don't mess with him. He's retarded. He's slow." Right. And if anybody gets upset of using the word retarded, I'm sorry. That's
Hey,
what the detainees were
I don't
saying.
think our audience cares.
Right.
yeah, where you at?
Yeah. So they would tell us, "Hey, he's slow MP, leave him alone, and donkey MP, leave him alone." And the dude acted slow. I'm talking about he had like the cross-eyed look and he was just like, "Oh, MP, give me this." And he would slobber on himself, he'd piss himself, all this other stuff, right? So he legitimately for 4.5 years played that role really good. And then I was one of the ones that escorted him to interrogation one day. And while we were sitting there, it was me and two other MPs. He pissed himself as we were walking in the door, all this other stuff. So we set him down, chain him up, handcuff him, and everything. The interrogator walks right past us, and this doesn't usually happen. They usually let us come out and they'll let him sit in there for a few hours. But that interrogator just pushes us aside and he lays this stuff down in front of him. And it's just these pictures and these paperwork and stuff like that. And he says, "This is who you are. Here's this person. Here's this person in your life. And we're about to go visit them because if you don't tell us if you don't identify who you are, or this person is, I can't protect them from the rockets that's going to fall on them." And all of a sudden he just sat up and he just started speaking perfect English. And he's like, what do you want to know?
Wow.
But for 4.5 years, he sat there and acted that way.
Wow.
So
Man,
That's
there was,
crazy. That's a great story.
that
yeah,
no, well, that just shows how, man, they do have some intestinal fortitude, like some
oh yeah,
terrorists, and
yeah.
but how dedicated they are to their to whatever they're dedicated. I don't even know what they're
Well,
dedicated to. Just how far they'll take it to win the fight, to win.
yeah.
It really is.
Well, there was so many people sitting there saying, that goat farmers were getting rolled up into becoming sent to Guantanamo Bay when they weren't really terrorists and everything. I was like, "Look, man, y'all don't understand the
Yeah.
logistics that goes into getting somebody into Guantanamo Bay." And I quickly learned that most all the people there were high up on somebody's food chain in some terrorist group or agency or a money person or something like that.
So it wasn't just some low level.
Yeah, there was no
Those,
low level. Everybody in there was at some, I would say, you know, they were decision makers or shot callers, wherever they were picked up at, or they had a special a trade or something, bomb maker. We had one guy that was we called him the kickboxer. Can't tell you his real name because one, I don't know it, but we called him the kickboxer. That dude was solid chisel muscle if I've ever seen any, and that dude was deadly. He would hang because in where we were at in Camp Delta, they had like the rec yard, and it was just fenced in chain. It had this whole chain link fence across the top, so nobody can climb out or anything. Well, he would climb up the side and he would hook his toes into that chain link fence, and he would just sit there and do sit ups hanging completely off of it. I mean, that dude, whenever they told, here's a quick story for you. So they called us one day. We were actually getting ready to leave the camp, and they were like, "No, we need y'all to come back because we have to do what's called a cell extraction or an earth, right?" And we're like, "Okay." So we go down, we get suited up, which is all that protective gear you wear that doesn't really protect you. And I was the shield man. And they said, they go through our brief. We have to have that camera in front of us, and they're saying, "Tell us your role, tell us this," and da da. They said, "All right, you're going into cell 63, and that is detainee number." And they give us his number, and we all had the number memorized. I'm not going to give it out here, but we all had the number memorized for the kickboxer. And I was just like, "Oh God, that's the scariest I've ever been in my life." Because anytime you go into his cell, somebody's getting hurt. And I was the shield man. So I was like,
is
whatever,
that
here we go.
that's the first guy? That's
Yeah,
you're
the
the
first
first
guy.
one in. Okay,
Right,
yeah.
first one in. So my whole job is to put that shield up and, try to pin him into the corner down to the ground, just get him off the thing. But when I say this dude was tough, I mean, there was nothing in that cell that he couldn't use to his advantage. But anyways, so they get ready to open the door, and you can hear the shield shaking because it's like hitting the edge of the wall and everything. I'm just like, oh, this is gonna suck, but oh well, let's get it over with, right? And the cell door opens up, and as I round the frame of the door, I see this green Kevlar come over my head, and it's my number two guy, and he just wham hits the kickboxer, and the kickboxer turns sideways. So I finally get the shield against him, and I mean, it was I forget what movie it was where everybody's just on top of each other, grabbing arms, biting legs, and stuff like that. And people were trying to put zip. I had a zip tie on my arm, like right here, whenever I came up
Because
out of the pile.
they
Somebody,
didn't somebody didn't know they're
yeah,
just throwing zip ties.
oh yeah, yeah. And the kickboxer was an African American guy, and I was just like, guys, come on. I mean, this is the whitest the white can be, But everybody was just grabbing whatever they could and putting zip ties on stuff. So but yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit I was scared to go in that cell after that guy because he was
Do you
meaty.
know
I can imagine
what
that.
affiliate? Could you say what affiliate? Who what group he was with? Was he or was
Well,
he
he was picked up in Afghanistan, and his whole thing was he was a trainer at one of their camps.
one
And
of their
going back to your
camps?
point about these guys aren't stupid, right? Um, they they were actually ahead of the curve for a long time on getting to know our tactics and techniques. They spent more time watching us and studying us than we did them out there in Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So we were spending more time adapting to them. So all these new systems that came out, we thought, hey, we got this new jammer system for this IED and everything. Well, as soon as we did that, they had a new way of setting that IED off because the jamming system would jam it because they knew about it coming out. But anyways,
yeah.
so they brought this guy in from somewhere. I don't know exactly what it was, but I do know he had a British accent. So you take from that whatever you want. But
That's weird. That is
yeah,
weird.
but he had no affiliation. He didn't care about Muslim or he wasn't Muslim. He didn't pray with them or anything like that. He didn't care anything about their politics. He was pretty much, you pay me, I'm coming to train people. So, and that's all he did. And he was the one training the detainees on the block how to make weapons inside their cell out of anything we can give them. So in Gitmo, they only got like a couple of sheets of toilet paper, their orange top, orange bottom, their little toothbrush, a little tiny piece of soap, a mat to sleep on. That's it for the Camp Delta side. All that's out there in the media. That's not top secret stuff. But he would teach them how to make weapons out of that all that stuff, right? He would teach them how to weaken the welds inside the cell by taking salt from your meal and water and build like little salt crystals on the weld. And he's like, guys, we're going to be here forever, so you might as well just, if you're in a cell, just go ahead and start weakening those welds and everything. And they actually, the camp commander actually found out they were doing that. So one of the processes of us doing a cell cleaning where we go in there trying to collect information is we would go brush the welds off and rinse them off and everything to get the salt off of them and everything. So they were I mean, they're smart, you know. Um,
Yeah, man, fighting in war and
yeah.
so many years and been in cells. You figure that even
Oh
I
yeah.
think even our own convicts and criminals in the high maximum security places know all the tricks of the trade.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what was the coolest? If you I say coolest. What was the most intricate weapon? Yeah, I do because that interests me. I would watch documentaries, and I do. I watch the about the big prisons and even going to some of the museums, and you see some of the weapon systems that are made out of some crazy stuff,
Yeah.
even just hardening paper
Yeah.
and making it. But yeah, did anybody that you know that you worked? Did anybody get seriously hurt while you were there? Or
Oh
any of your
yeah.
buddies and but yeah, I know it's morbid, but it interests me, man. I always find corrections and places like Gitmo and Abu
Yeah.
Ghraib and then
Yeah.
our own big prisons here interesting
Yeah.
just because it's its own little world. Its own little world within a world.
Oh yeah. And yeah, you're right. There was the most intricate weapon in Guantanamo was they would make this little spear gun, and they make I'd call it a little bolt because it reminds me of the little arrow from a crossbow because it's about that long. And my first time finding one, I thought this thing was made of wood or something, but like you said, it was made from toilet paper, elastic from the clothing, thread from the clothing, and I think some of the plastic wrapping stuff from crackers and stuff like that from the meals and
Wow.
everything. Which after a while we started having to like take the plastic. We couldn't give them any plastic other than spoon. We had to get the whole spoon back. But
Jeez.
yeah, but they would make this thing. I called it a bolt because it was kind of big on one end and kind of came down to a taper to the sharpest point they can make it. And the most clever one I found was they actually did work a weld off the framing of the where the two pieces of the metal wall was
Hmm.
welded together. And he found a little piece and he broke it off and he stuck that in the end of it to make it a sharp tip, right? And then they would take the elastic from their orange shorts and they would rig it up on their hand and they would pull that bolt back. And as you open up the feed tray and you go to put it in there, he would let it loose and it just flies right off his arm. And for the most part, if it was just the paper ones, I mean, you'd get a pretty significant bruise on you if it hit just right. But if you had that little piece of metal or a little piece of plastic tip or something like that, it would go in there and draw some blood. Um, it was annoying, but it did. And whenever something like that happened, you're like, what the hell did he dip this tip in?
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, dip it in
So
shit.
exactly.
You
Yeah.
poison it, dip it in piss or shit,
Oh
and
yeah.
Hope you guys are enjoying this episode with Jeremy Mitchell. Of course, we talk firearms on here because Jeremy Mitchell is a firearms instructor. And much like Chris, he doesn't shoot with anything else than Fort Scott Munitions. Fort Scott Munitions is a manufacturer of multi-federal patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammunition. It's designed to tumble upon impact their trademark TUI and soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. This ammunition was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standard of military grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it would be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring that you receive the same results with each pull of the trigger. Now, Fort Scott is available in all 50 states. I see it in gun stores around here all the time, but you'll get the best deal through us when you go to fsm.com and you use our promo code BattleLine, which is exclusively for listeners of this podcast. fsm.com, promo code BattleLine. Thank you, as always, to Fort Scott Munitions, longtime supporters of Chris and Battle Line Tactical and the podcast. Also, we're going to have on the guys from Photonis Defense next week, as long as scheduling and all that goes accordingly. It's been a while since we've had them on.
Yeah.
They're ramping up U.S. manufacturing, which is absolutely awesome. Now you can have the superpower to see in the dark with the Viper Binocular Night Vision System by Photonis Defense, the global leader in night vision solutions, providing more high quality night vision capabilities than anyone. Military, law enforcement, and public safety end users utilize Photonis Defense Solutions to give them the edge at night in tactical situations and rescue operations. Hunters, shooters, boaters, and enthusiasts can rely on the Photonis Defense Viper Binocular to become masters of darkness. The new Viper binocular system carries the same features and benefits as the Photonis Defense Viper monocular with a ruggedized body and harnesses the power of the Echo intensifier tubes, giving you sharper images, reduced halo, and industry-leading ultra-fast auto gating across the range of dynamic operating conditions. Visit photonisdefense.com for more information or look for Photonis Defense product options from your night vision dealer. That's PHOTONIS defense.com, photonisdefense.com. Go there now if you want to have the best night vision that there is available on the market. And with that, let's get right back over to Jeremy Mitchell.
How long were you there, man? And then what, when you finally were out, were you like, oh man, I'm out of here, or was it, I got
Well,
more time here, and did you go anywhere after too? Any of
oh,
the
after
things
Guantanamo?
yeah.
Yeah, so Guantanamo, I got out of there in 2004. I want to say it was October 2004. I don't remember the exact month, but October, 2004. And we went back home. And after that, I was like, all right, now I need to do something because my Alabama passed a law that if you were in the Alabama National Guard deployed, that your job had to wait on you when it came, it had to be there when you came back. And so I contacted the company that I worked for as a security guard, and they said, "Yeah, you're still work for this company, but now you'd be working over here." And it was like Garden Waste Management Agency or something like that. And I was like, "Hey, I need the money. I don't care." And then my buddy Eddie, that's I told you about, that recruited me, he called me. He says, "Hey, dude," he's like, "just I know you got back from Guantanamo and everything, so." Go put in for a job up here at the state military department or Alabama National Guard headquarters. And they had an opening in human resources. Now, in human resources, a lot of reading and a lot of writing, right? And I'm like,
Not your strengths.
right. So I was like, you do realize I'm dyslexic, dude, right? And that's something I hid from the military for a while, because at the time they were just like, you're dyslexic, we don't want you in here. But the anyways, so he says go for this human resources job. So I went in there, interviewed for the job, and it was on my way to Six Flags, taking my kids to Six Flags because I was still burning up leave after Guantanamo, because I had like 6 weeks of leave to burn up. And the so the woman that interviewed me, she said, "Okay, you're hired for the position. After you burn up your leave and everything, come on in." Right. So went to human resources right after Guantanamo and the Alabama National Guard headquarters. I did that for about a year and a half, and then I saw a job opening in what was at the time called POMS, and I forget what POMS is meant or stood for, but they changed it to DOMS, Director of Military Support. And I saw an opening there in their physical security, and I said, "Perfect. Let me go put in for that job." So I went interviewed for that job, and there was a Lieutenant Colonel Butler. I'm sorry, Butters, Lieutenant Colonel Butters. He was the person that interviewed me. He's like, "All right, well, somebody will call you and let you know if you made it or you didn't." I was like, "All right, cool." It was the next day, and he said, somebody called me and they said, "Hey, you made it. Come on, you're switching jobs." And it was weird because it's on the same compound. So it's literally sitting going to work that day here. You go to work over here, so you just walk right across the street and there's your new job. But anyways, the funny part of that was when I started that job, I was all excited and everything. And then I realized half the people in the room hated me because there were multiple other people that put in for the job that were like former sheriffs, deputy sheriffs. I mean, chief police or chief of police and stuff like that. And here I am, this new guy off the street that don't hardly know anything in their eyes, about physical security, anti-terrorism, OPSEC, all that stuff. And but when I talked to the lieutenant colonel later, he told me, he's like, hey, look, he's like, you're moldable, you're trainable. Everybody else that they've hired in the past came in and had, they thought they knew everything, so you couldn't teach them anything, right?
That makes sense.
And like, yeah, so like me and Chris say, or Chris says it all the time too, is you got to be trainable. You can never stop learning, you know. And so, anyways, worked for the director of military support, and I did the rest of my time there up until 2017 working for them, other than when I was deployed to Iraq. And that's a whole other story there. So, sorry, I don't want to keep running my mouth, man.
No,
Y'all
no,
No,
want
this
no,
is great, man.
no,
This is
no,
all
no.
yeah,
great.
That's
yeah,
did I did want to ask you that one more thing about Guantanamo Bay. Um, just the atmosphere, man. I should have asked at the beginning,
yeah,
but that's my dyslexia, my think.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
jumping all over the place. But what going in there and what was the atmosphere like when you got there? Was even just the sights and smells and
God, the
because you
smells.
remember I mean you are
Yeah,
in a tropical
yeah.
paradise. Think about it. Felt
Well,
like you're up in the mountainside freezing your balls off. I mean, but what
the
was that like, man?
oh,
I'm
it
walking
was,
on there, and just like this
yeah.
is a prison in paradise.
Yeah, nah. It Guantanamo itself, I mean, other than like, where the piece of Guantanamo that we were on was not green and plush land and everything. It was all like rocky hills and, just cactuses and just different things. And but where the camp was at, it's real close to the water. So if you had the chance, where our chow hall was set up, you can walk outside the chow hall and go out there and look at the ocean and everything. And you're like, hey, this is cool. It's pretty,
Yeah,
especially at night.
I bet.
But it had its moments, those moments that you talk about, Chris, where you're like, you just kind of take it all in.
Yeah.
Um, but going into the camp and everything, that was a very strange experience because when we did our training, it was just kind of like mock up places. And you're like, and they had like 2x4s with like chicken wire, and you're like, is this? They're like, no, it's going to be metal steel building stuff, and like, okay. But when we got there, I mean, it was loud because one, the detainees knew they were doing a right seat, left seat, training the new personnel. So they were just going to act up no matter what. And the guys that were training was like, guys, 2 weeks after we leave, it's going to calm down. They're not going to do this anymore. But it was just hell on earth with all the noise, all the banging, all the stuff being thrown on you, everything, right? And trying to learn the ins and outs, right, left boundaries, stuff like that. And the smell, oh my God, the
I bet.
smell. Lisa, after I came back from Guantanamo, because Lisa used to do this little homemade mixture of vinegar and something to clean like hard to clean things around the house and everything.
At least she's your
And
wife. For everybody that doesn't, Lisa's
Yeah.
his
yeah,
his
Lisa,
wife. Yeah.
Lisa's my wife, yes. The but I told her, I said, you can't do that because to this day, if I smell vinegar, it reminds me of that freaking body odor. That it was just constant body odor down there from those guys. Because
So it's just, is it the vinegar or is it, I mean, when you're burning fat, like you go to Ranger School and you're
yeah,
not eating and your body, it turns into ammonia. So when
yeah,
you sweat, you
I
smell
say
like
vinegar, but
ammonia.
yeah,
Is
ammonia.
that what it is?
Yeah,
Ammonia.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
know that smell real because
yeah,
my body smelled like that towards the
yeah,
end of Ranger School because your
yeah.
sweat, you're
That
burning your muscle.
that smell you're talking about right there, that's it. You know
And
what I
that's,
mean?
yeah,
Because
that's
yeah,
for those that don't know, that is a rancid and it does, it's just, it's obvious. It's ammonia. Like, where's that ammonia coming from?
oh
Oh
yeah,
shit, it's me.
yeah.
And what was it that because they weren't eating or I mean because you got to
Well,
burn your
no, no. Well, there was a lot of dudes that kept in shape down there because you'd see them doing push-ups, sit-ups, all that stuff in their cells and
so
everything.
it wasn't this torture
But
facility that the media
no,
try
no.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they weren't watching TVs and had a workout yard or anything, but their movements was very controlled. But they did have there were so many guys down there that were getting fat as hell because we'd give them 3 MREs a day, and they're like they'd have to go on a diet program, and the diet program was just like, all right, don't give them the entire MRE. He's like, dude, they should be only eating one MRE a day.
they're getting healthier. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Eh,
me and you both know, Chris, that one MRE is meant for a whole day. It can be
I,
broken down for a whole day.
you know, and broken in for a whole week sometimes. I remember,
Yeah, yeah.
but and that was my where I've never really asked you. It's just because back then you heard all the, and even still sometimes you'll hear from the left media that Guantanamo was this awful, terrible, torturous place, and we're saying, and then, but whenever I talk to you about it, it's like, man, it sounded like they got along better there than they were aside from them being locked up because they were killing Americans and they were killing a lot of people, and it
They
just
got
is like, it didn't sound like this torture waterboarding facility that everybody made it
no,
out, or an
no,
Abu Ghraib type facility, which they did do some horrendous, stupid shit there. The security guards lost their minds for a bit there.
Oh yeah, and don't get me wrong, there were guards that you who got either shit or cum or piss or whatever thrown on them, or if they were lucky, the all three mixed together. Um,
Of
and
course.
they would lose their mind. You know
Well,
what I mean?
I'd lose my mind.
Right. So that's why you had multiple guards there, and you pull that person, and of course, everybody's asking, "Hey, what happened? Don't worry about it. It's cool. Everybody's fine." But anyways, um, the yeah, they weren't. There was never a case of if a detainee got hurt there is either because one of them hurt one another or they hurt themselves, like they tried to hang themselves. They just couldn't deal with it anymore. And the which that rarely ever happened because they were just like, whatever, dude, we got food, 3 square meals a day. I mean, yeah, they do the non-sleep thing every once in a while, or they would uh um at the worst case scenario, they'd be cut down to 1 meal a day. But I mean, they got educated too. They got better education there than they did back at home because
Sure.
a lot of them were taught to speak English because they needed to communicate with the EMPs, and interpreters and everything were being shipped overseas to Afghanistan, and because that was not long after we went into I think we went into Iraq uh in
T
2003 through 2004, right?
2003, it was like 2003. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
2000,
So that
end of
was right when
beginning
we got
2003.
shifted over into there. So they were starting to put more and more interpreters and translators and everything over there before they can communicate with the local populace.
Well,
So
let's get into that though, because you mentioned Iraq,
Yeah, yeah.
after you had that
yeah,
position. Let's get into that.
yeah. Oh, into Iraq.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So Iraq was cool, and I actually had to research a little bit today to make sure that was a lot of the stuff we were doing over there, is that now open knowledge and everything, and it is. But for my deployment, we were put up into a place called Ashraf, the city of Ashraf. We were guarding everybody said were Iranian terrorists, right? These were the Iranians that defected from Iran, and Saddam was going to use them to try to invade Iran, right? So plus he was using them as the hit squad. So all those things you heard about Saddam going around mustard gassing people, stuff like that. These were the people that do that. These were his hit squad, right? Um, in Ashraf, there was two populations of these guys. They're the ones that defected from Iran and they lived in Ashraf, right? There were people that defected from Ashraf that said they didn't want to be no part of this anymore. They wanted to move to America, right? So we were guarding both groups of people. The people that were in the refugee camp, the Iraqi people wanted to kill them, the Iranian government wanted to kill them, and the people of Ashraf wanted to kill them. So we had to protect them at all costs.
So these are people that have already been, I don't want to say round up because it sounds like concentration camp, but we've already the other units, other military units, other U.S. and allied units have already grabbed certain people, or did you guys go in
No,
there
the
or
city
they
of Ashraf was
volunteered?
for them. That was for them, right?
Okay.
The city of Ashraf was built for, or not built for them, but it was given to them by Saddam for them to
So
live
how
in.
did
So
you how did they differentiate? How did you know who was
Oh,
what?
as soon as the invasion happened, and they were setting up camp, that was one of the locations that they went to secure that area. So they treated that whole area as, they surrounded it and they said, okay, you're all are now technically prisoners, right, inside this city. And from my understanding, that's when they were going door to door collecting weapons, stuff like that, from these guys in Ashraf, or guys and gals, because there were
And
women.
who's they? Who's they? Saddam?
Marines,
Or that
we
us?
were.
Okay, so we
Yeah,
were going.
Army,
Okay,
Marines,
gotcha,
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah.
Disarming and okay, got
Right,
it, got it, got it.
exactly. So they pretty much they were securing the city of Ashraf because they were going to try to leave the area. But anyways, excuse me. But so once that was secured and everything, that's when a lot of their population saying we don't want to be here. We haven't want to be here for years. We didn't want to be a part of this because it was men and women, but they couldn't have any children. Everybody there was sterile. Okay. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if that's something they had to do under Saddam or whatever, but nobody could have any children. But so this group of people says, we don't want to be here no more. So they, instead of them sitting there saying, okay, well, we're going to take you way on the other side of Iraq, they literally put them across the road and built a camp for them over there. So we had to keep, these two people safe from each other. But anyways, and there was times that it was reported to us that Iran would try to send people in to do like go after certain people inside Ashraf and kill them, right? Because they were, defectors from Iran. But anyways, when I got there, all this has been pretty much set up. So we're just kind of walking into the situation where, we just learn our jobs, which was one, guard these bunkers that were out there. Um, and that's a story with remind me to tell you about the bunkers. But we're guarding the bunkers out there. We're guarding the perimeter of Ashraf. We were actually at this point when I came in, they already had a negotiation. They were no longer prisoners; they were protected persons,
Okay.
right? So they had protected person status. And then we had to guard the refugee camp also. Now we quickly found out that nobody knew we were there. So we had this what we call an intel collection point. So if anybody had to come into the Ashraf perimeter, they had to come through our point, and we had to figure out who you are, why you're here, all this other stuff, right?
So wait, you're wearing uniforms, so
Right.
nobody on the U.S. side knew you
Yeah,
guys?
no, yeah, for the most part, any US soldiers working around our area had no idea what we were going to do. And I'll tell you two quick stories. At this intel collection point, we were sitting there one day. Anytime a convoy came down Cheyenne,
Yeah.
um, we would have to dismount our 50 cal from our makeshift little mount we had on top of the bunker, and we'd have to pull any kind of American flags we had down and everything. Everybody had to lay down behind the bunkers. Now, where our point was from Cheyenne, you really couldn't see it for the haze unless the gunner had binoculars out and he was looking for it, or if they had the thermals up at night or something, then you can kind of see movement. But that point got shot at several times by American soldiers because we didn't show up on BFT, right? Or a
Yeah,
Blue
yeah,
Force
the
tracker.
Blue
Yeah.
Force tracker, yeah,
Yeah. Because we were
or
instructed
Falcon View.
right. We have to turn our Blue Force tracker off when we got to those perimeter points so nobody knows we were out there, right? We wouldn't show up on anything. The second story was, and I was actually back at the FOB, forward operating base when this happened. But one of my guys that was out there, he said that there was an Apache that come flying overhead because the convoy was calling in that there were people on the side of the road setting up a device, which there was. It was up the road from us or from where our point was. But the Apache saw us, right? So we had no idea the convoys that we couldn't hear any of the radio traffic. We're not monitoring that. We just see this Apache flying overhead, and all of a sudden it just stops and it starts lining up like it's about to take a
Yeah,
shot on us, right?
gonna do its gun run. Yeah.
Right. So everybody was like,
Rocker.
yeah, everybody's like, oh crap. And again, I'm not there. This is secondhand, but the guy sat there and said they pulled the American flag out and held it up real quick. And the Apache kind of just lifted up, sat there for a minute, and then just continued on with mission. Right.
Why did this first time I've heard any of this, man?
Yeah.
Why were you secret? What was so secretive about
Yeah.
an MP unit guarding a town that is sterile, that has sterile people in it?
Well,
I don't get it, you
yeah,
know?
again, and at the time I was there, this is before it all came out who was in the area, right? So if I went to Anaconda, right,
Yeah.
and I had one of the protected persons with me, um, we were nobody was allowed to ask him any questions. We couldn't tell you who he was. Nobody knew anything about this because if anybody would have found out he was our Iranian, right, then they would either the local population would have killed him or
They
U.S.
killed him.
soldiers, right? So we wouldn't issue them any IDs, right? So we didn't want to give them any kind of official document. So we were their official document. We're the person getting them because we would fly them into Anaconda and let them go shop in the PX every once in a while, right?
Yeah, I know.
So we were their, escort. If anybody had any questions, they had to go through us because
So
no,
we as Americans, even though Iranians are big part of this war, you guys are protecting Iranians that are trying to kill Americans, so Iraqis don't kill them.
right.
That's just I don't get our government at all, dude. I'm trying to wrap my hand
Well,
around it.
here's I don't know I don't know if they were training y'all on the anti-terror. You know how you had to do that annual anti-terrorism training, like, and even the OPSEC training. I think they mentioned where, if you're going to and from work, don't take the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
route, all this
yeah,
other
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And they give you that example about this colonel that had a bomb put under his car because he kept taking the same route, and
Oh yeah,
they attacked him.
I used to give that class. I used to,
Right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that colonel, I can't think of his name right now, but that colonel that y'all had given that training and everything, one of the guys that set that bomb on the car was one of the guys in Ashraf, and that's who we were guarding.
That's just
Wow.
Exactly.
Weirdest
But
thing. And so, did you even feel like you got anything out of that deployment, or aside from just and believe me, war, you get to see some. I still got great memories in my head of some of the places I've got to see in some of these areas that are completely off limit. You can't travel to Afghanistan, you can't go to Yemen, you can't go to Sana'a, and I mean, you can't go to Libya. I mean, you can, but it's highly. Yeah, I'm like, man, I got great memories that I gotta just hang out there at times, which you do.
yeah.
But in your case, in this, for what? It's
Well,
like trying
yeah,
to hold a hill that isn't worth anything, man, and you just
yeah.
lose a bunch of people.
I'll tell you, if I focus on that mission, then yeah, I kind of get, a bitter feeling about it. You know what I mean? Especially because um that's where I told you about the
Did
incident with the little
did you
girl
lose?
and
Yeah,
everything.
no,
Yeah.
I don't. Did you lose any? But I guess I was going to ask, did you
Well,
lose any?
we've lost several people during that, and one of them that I remember, there was this Marine. Me and him started talking at Chow Hall one day, and we were hitting it off because he was from Alabama, also originally from Alabama, but he actually joined the Marines, and they had him bouncing all over the place before 9/11 happened. And but we started hitting it off. We were talking about same hometown stuff. I was like, "Oh, I know that where that's at. I know Old Ridge Road. I know all this stuff. So we are hitting it off. I was like, "This is cool, man. Let's meet here tomorrow night." Blah blah blah. And he's like, "Yeah, cool." Or tomorrow morning for breakfast and everything. So, all of a sudden we get an. It was probably about 15 hours later. We get an alert that we have to go, and they're waking us up. And they said, "We need you to guard these vehicles on the flatbeds and everything because there was an IED that banana peeled the Humvee, right?"
Mm,
So we go out there and we're like, "Oh, this sucks." Da, da, da. All of a sudden, I realized that guy I just made friends with, he was
okay.
one of the guys that were killed in that attack. And
Damn. So, like the
so
next day?
it was that night. Yeah.
Wow.
So after
Wow,
me and
man.
him communicated, he was
Yeah.
headed out on mission. I was going to my bunk to get some sleep,
Damn.
and then just found that out. And I was like, "Well, that sucks." But again, in that training, or in that deployment, Chris, that's kind of where I learned the whole process of being able to deal with all the emotions, especially what happened with. And
Yeah, yeah,
I thought I told you about the little girl, but
If you haven't
yeah.
told
I,
us here,
You
then
know,
the
I mean,
audience
you
will
haven't.
probably
You've
want to
told
hear.
me, but
yeah.
if you want to talk about it here, you can.
Yeah, I mean, it one of the parts of healing and everything is talking about it. But again,
Yeah.
this is again we're under this cloud of secrecy that we're not on this fob or this area, right? So this little girl used to come around all the time to this intel point, and we called her Little Princess and everything. But if you were there when you showed up, you would play games with her. A little
Sure.
stupid game. We started like bringing little games to play with her when she showed up, right? Because her dad was giving up a lot of information about stuff going on in the local area, right? And I can tell you all that. It's not a secret. We're not there
So
anymore. But
I just quite. So were there elements of the clowns in action and the NSA? I mean, were they there as well? Is that where they were doing a lot of
no,
their meetings and stuff, or
we
was it
would
just all
collect.
CID?
No, we would collect all the information,
Okay,
and then we
gotcha.
would take it back at the end of the day, and then we'd have to debrief and all
Okay,
this other
gotcha. I
stuff,
just
right?
that's just officer. Go
Yeah,
back to little girl. That's go
right,
back
right.
to her. Sorry about that.
So quickly became friends and everything. And I get a lot of heat about this one thing, but I usually have my Bible there with me. And one day she kind of grabbed the Bible, and the interpreter was saying she wants to know about this, and I put it, and it's just one of those little Bibles. And I put it in my pocket. I said, "This is my book. Your dad has a book he wants you to read." And a lot of Christians give me a lot of crap about that. I'm like, "Look, dude, I'm gonna tell you right now, as a father, I don't want some dude saying read this book that goes against
Yeah.
what your dad's teaching you."
Yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
right. So, plus I'm trying to keep the peace. But anyways,
Sure. But you're
uh,
not there as a missionary.
Yeah,
You're there
yeah.
right,
as
Well,
exactly.
military,
I'm not
Yeah,
trying to convert you. I'm here to work. I'm here to
exactly.
work and do my job, not convert anyone.
exactly.
I
So,
felt the same way. I'm not trying to convert anybody. I got my
yeah,
Bible, you got your Quran,
yeah,
cool.
you do
Hey, and
you, I
if you
do
read
me.
both of them and you put them together, if you're not extreme on either side,
Yep.
they pretty much are the damn
Yeah.
same
They
things.
both talk
But
about Jesus,
yeah,
but
exactly,
one, yeah.
exactly. Anyway,
Anyways, so we're sitting there, and it's a few weeks goes by and everything, and I'm on the point with a few other guys, and all of a sudden this car just comes barreling up there. So we're just like, what the hell, you know? And he jumps out, you know, before he gets to that point where we're like, we're gonna shoot you.
yeah, yeah,
But he jumps out, he opens up the back seat, and he pulls this like not like a blanket, it's like a little rug or whatever. And he comes running up there,
yeah,
and his wife is screaming and crying, and he's looking at me, and the interpreter's telling me, he's like, you know, hey, they're asking for help, can you call the medevac and stuff like that. They weren't saying medevac, but can you call the doctor to come help them and everything. So um I get on the radio and I'm thinking, hey, this is a no-brainer call. They'll send the medics up from the fob, because the fob wasn't that far away from us, because the intel point's not with the fob, but
yeah,
we're,
yeah.
yeah. Anyways, the so I'm like, yeah, they'll, you know, they'll send somebody or whatever. All of a sudden, call comes back, says, tell them to go down the checkpoint, right? Because the checkpoint was probably about a mile and a half down the road, because there's another checkpoint that belonged to American forces. I mean, they can't see us, we can't see them, but that's where people would have to go through if they needed help with anything. So we were told to instruct them to go down there. And so I said, go down there. He's screaming, she needs help now. So I'm gonna get on the radio, needs help now. And there's a lot more to this. I'm
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
paraphrasing a lot of it. But they're like, absolutely not, cannot happen. They're not gonna call for help, right? Send them to the checkpoint. So I'm sitting there, and the, you know, comms breaks with me. They're like, nope, done. We're not gonna tell
Yeah,
you again, you
yeah.
know. So they're sitting there, and this guy and the interpreter's telling me, hey, you have to leave, blah, blah, where he starts shoving his daughter into my chest. And I still actually got the rank that I wore, the Velcro rank. I still have that on the wall in my office and everything. But I mean, dude, I'm going to be graphic for everybody.
No, no,
But
we are.
I
We're,
mean, no eyelids, no lips, ears gone. She was burnt from head to toe.
would she step on a pressure plate? Did she get
he the we the guy told the interpreter there was an explosion. I don't know what exploded,
okay?
but she was burnt from head to toe, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So, you know, he's shoving her into my body armor and everything. Finally, I'm sitting here, I tell the interpreter, or I was like, look, you need to tell them they have to leave now or we'll have to detain them, you know. So the whole time, and he says it in perfect English. In my mind, it sounded like perfect English. And he said, you always treated her like a princess, and now you're throwing her away like trash, you know. And he just takes off in his car and leaves and everything. So that kind of stuff, if I think too hard about the mission, that's the kind of things that would really mess with my head and everything.
Do you have a
But
distaste for the military for all I
no,
mean, there's so many guys that like, I
no,
actually think back episodes we did with like Adam Kokesh, right? Who, like, he's probably the only guy we've had on who's like, yeah, I regret joining the military for things like
well,
that.
I tell you this, I don't have a disdain for the military and everything. And my whole thing is it's a brotherhood, and I say brotherhood because they're all women. Because MPs, we for everybody who sat there and sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sidetracked real quick, but everybody who sat there and said women weren't in combat, we had several women in combat zone with us before anybody started. I mean, because MPs, we
yeah.
were not integrated. What I'm trying to say, men and women.
You're
But yeah,
integrated. Well,
yeah,
I mean, we had Tommy Block on. Actually,
co-ed.
I was
Yeah,
just at the infantry museum. That the lady, female soldier that got killed when Tommy
yeah,
she's actually she's at the infantry museum. She would actually have
yeah.
a memorial for her that I was able to see on that. And so, yeah, they are, women are in combat, whether
Oh
they're
yeah,
civil
yeah.
affairs,
I
MP, or whatever. And
One of my
there's
best
arm.
gunner, yeah, one of my best gunners, Tristy Bradley. She was female. She was one of my best gunners
I
on
ain't gonna
convoys.
lie to you, bro. I know we're gonna go on, but here's me turning. But I swear the hottest thing I saw was they had a hot when I was in Iraq was a hot female soldier on a 50, the 50 cal.
Yeah,
I was like, man, That is sexy right there.
I
But
think,
anyway,
yeah,
so
no,
sorry. I know we're talking about the little girl, but I just it
yeah, but
reminded me of it when I saw her in Iraq, like Baghdad. Like,
yeah.
man, that was sexy. I'd never seen that before in my life. And there's a BDUs, and she's up on top of a turret with a 50 cal. That's freaking awesome.
Well, my wife's gonna watch this
She's
eventually,
gonna tell
so
Tanya
You're
whatever
not
you
you know,
saying
said.
anything.
So
I
it's
don't agree with you.
but
Yeah,
did you because you know we had similar experiences where I should have helped granted I didn't. I wish I would have got and it helps, maybe it will help you. I wish I would have had the chance to actually go there, and even if I couldn't have helped that, I because I left. I didn't think anything was
yeah,
wrong, and Dan Laguna went and did the right thing where I did the right thing mission wise, but I didn't do the
right,
right thing, and I let a little girl die.
yeah,
And that still sticks with me. But having that, and I know they took off again. It wasn't your call, and
yeah,
I have a disdain for people in the talk. I have a disdain for people that make calls that are not on the field. I have a
yeah,
disdain for people that are making judgments 1,000 miles away.
right.
I do, or 100 miles away, or somebody.
Yeah.
Did you ever get a reason why? Did you? I know, and you're not at a point where those times that you ask, but
Yeah.
knowing me, I would have asked. I know I would have. I would have said, "What the fuck?
Yeah, well,
Why
yeah, and
couldn't you send somebody?"
we all kind of said that, and we were all, it was protected person status situations and everything, and we got that normal spiel. But yeah, to lean on what you're saying, also answer Ian's question. Yeah, I don't have a disdain for the military, but yeah, that upper echelon leadership that's making those decisions that aren't on the on the battlefield, because for the most part, my company commanders, the FOB commander, and even, I mean, they wouldn't come up to you and be like, "You should have known better. You shouldn't have done this." They come up to you and they I mean, they grab you by the shoulder and say, "I understand that was hard, da da da, but these decisions are made above us, and you know, I can only imagine that because for what I know about that FOB commander, I called her the redheaded Viking, but she was real good people. You know what I mean? So if there was a way to make something happen, she would have tried to make it happen. But I mean, if we have to call for anything, it's going to get denied. So
I just don't see a medic, just a 91. I don't know if they're a Bravo, just could have come out. A medic could have come out.
yeah,
I mean, or
they would have flew a medevac out if it was a U.S. soldier or if it was one of the protected persons, right? They would have flew them out because there was many times we took protected persons to Anaconda for treatment.
but why couldn't they just have brought your medic? I'm not saying a medevac. I'm saying
Yeah.
an actual medic. At least make the effort because it sounds like that's what they
From
were just wanting from. Didn't you have you had to have a combat
Oh yeah,
a
each
medic or a
unit,
corpsman or something there
yeah,
at your unit.
each unit had a medic, or the Marines that were there, they had a
A
corpsman.
corpsman,
We
yeah.
had a TMC, on there. But and when I say TMC, I mean it's like a shack that, medics would bring their supplies
Yeah,
in and be like, yeah, but
but you have people that are trained beyond combat
right, right.
lifesaver. You have people that are trained that at least can stabilize, and then I got him now, get him out of here.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me, man.
Well,
A lot of times.
when talking to my medic at the unit at that time, and I'm taking him at his word on this, that, this is the standard understanding between them all on the fob, is that the moment they start working on them, now it becomes they have to be part of that, and they have to engage. Kind of like if you start giving somebody like or CPR and mouth to mouth, you can't stop until the paramedics show up. So once they start treatment, now they say we have to call in this medevac, and in my mind, I'm like, well, what's the problem with this?
Yeah.
But he was like, no, you don't understand. People get in trouble if we if the people that are assigned to this base are helping anybody outside this base, you know, the Iraqi people, and again, decisions that are way above our heads and everything, don't understand it. It didn't make sense to me. But even when we were on Anaconda, if we were escorting a protected person, if a U.S. soldier wanted to ID our guy, because they don't get escorted in handcuffs, they're protected people, they're not detainees. So even when we took them to the medical center on Anaconda, the doctors would say, "Y'all need to handcuff this guy to this thing." We're like, "No, we're not doing that." We would protect that person from
Hmm.
American soldiers on Anaconda.
It's just
So if an
So
American soldier came up, especially if it was one of the guys at the gate guarding. In fact, Triple Canopy was doing some work out there in the green zone, and
they have a bit of base in Olympia, so Camp
right,
Olympia. Yeah.
right, and we had to roll through. We stayed at a hotel. I can't think of the hotel name, but whenever we would fly them into there into the green zone,
I
um,
know which one you're talking about. I can't
yeah,
remember it either. Yeah, no.
yeah, that big one
Yeah.
that's not, yeah. Anyways, the when we roll through there, they say we need to see his ID. There was several times the triple canopy guys or anything like that would be pointing guns at us, and we're like, no, we're not opening these doors, we're not letting you look in here, stuff like that, and it was just weird for us because they sat there and said you can, if you have to protect this person, if you have to, if it comes down to it, you can point your weapon at another American soldier, and we're like, we ain't doing that,
Just
but
sounds
it never came to that, it never
true.
came to that. But from my understanding, anybody that came before us, anybody who came after us, because I've met a couple people that came in there after us, nobody ever had to do that because me and you both know that if it's not your job or your problem, you're not getting engaged with it, because most soldiers walking around kind of like, that looks like something I don't want to be involved in, and they walk off. You
Well,
know?
there's more issues. Man, it
Yeah,
just well, that's a cool story because I didn't know I didn't even know that was part of it, and I still even after talking to you, and it sounds like you don't know either, which is
yeah,
fine. Is that what I still don't understand that whole group. Why were we protecting the Iranians,
yeah.
Iraqis? So what? Go have at each other, man. What are we
Yeah.
doing? But
It was.
anyway,
I was.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was going to say there's plenty of that talk between us soldiers and everything, what the reasoning might be, and of course, everybody had all kinds of conspiracy theories and
What was your
everything.
then what was yours?
The
What was
the
yours?
the one that made the most sense to me, and again, this is unfounded. This is just opinions of soldiers
Sure.
talking crap on a fob and everything. But it was like the only reason we could think to keep them was because if you remember at the time, we were also trying to decide if Iran was going to be an issue, right? Should we go into Iran? Did the weapons of mass destruction get moved to Iran or whatever? That was all the talk going on in the media and everything. So we were thinking these guys that Saddam was trying to use for his planning to take over Iran, maybe that's what we were doing. We
Gotcha.
were trying to collect intel, it takes some of them out, reinsert them into Iran as spies, stuff like that.
That's
Again, that's all just scuttlebutt stuff, no confirmation on
well, it
that.
sounds like how you had your place set up. It sounds like they
Yeah.
were being utilized as assets. That
Yeah.
see, I would call assets. They're spies, our informants, or man, or maybe Israel had some people out there. It just it's the worst thing that they would have you guys protecting them and escorting them into Anaconda.
Yeah.
I know there's got to be
Oh,
some
dude.
explanation, maybe not reasonable, but I mean that makes sense to me. But it's just still it makes sense, but it doesn't.
Well, and here's the
I don't
crazy
accept I
thing.
don't accept that,
When
man.
when we went inside the green zone in Baghdad and everything, there were times we ate with them in the chow hall. So they would be sitting there next to the big red one guys and everything, and just eating chow with us and everything. And
Yeah, I think it just goes into there's so many components of the military, and no
Yeah,
one knows what everybody's doing.
yeah,
yeah,
I want to make sure we hit on a few other things,
yeah,
because
yeah.
there's a
I
lot to
wanted to at
cover.
least get this too.
But
That's
yeah, we
it.
can get into that. But I was going to ask about getting into firearms instruction.
oh,
Just
okay, yeah.
because that's obviously a passion of yours. That's what you do now. Was that just post-military, something that you did that was therapeutic, or how did you get into it as heavily as you are? Did you grow up with guns?
No, I did not grow up with guns. My first, other than hunting, just like a
Well,
shotgun
that's a
or
big that's a
yeah,
big deal. I mean
or
it's a cultural difference. So because
Yeah.
yeah, and that
here,
was
very few people grow up with hunting. So
yeah, yeah, and that was only like 1 week during deer hunting season or something. But anyways, when I joined the military, did military police and everything like that. Of course, we train on pistol and carbine, so I thought I knew everything about pistol and carbine at that when I got out of basic training. But especially when we found out that the infantry guys and rangers and stuff didn't really train on pistols, and we are like, yeah, we're better. But tip
True.
of the
Yeah,
spear of my
I
ass. But
did.
but so it was during training up to go to Iraq, and I've kind of talked about it in the book a little bit, but That's where I came up with the whole we need to train better. We need to find a way to train people better to deal with stress, make decisions under stress, how to process it afterwards, all that other stuff. So I kind of got in that with the firearm stuff, right? But it was in August, I retired because I always did training the regular, and Chris knows what I'm talking about. Get on the range, you get the guys online, you let them shoot the target, pull them off the line, get the next guys up. It's just like, let's get them on there. There's really no training every year, you know. Um, but especially when military police, I thought we were doing high speed training with these pistols. But in August 2017, this was after I was medically retired for being stabbed in the shoulder during a carjacking. But I really wanted the car, but that person wanted it more. No, it was my car they were trying to steal.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah. But anyways, retired out and everything, and all of a sudden all my buddies are like, man, you got to watch this movie 13 hours. And they said, but be ready to be pissed off. I was like, okay,
This before you and I met.
yeah, yeah. And so I finally sat down because at first I was like, I really don't want to get pissed off at a movie, right? So I watch the movie and I get pissed off, and me and the guys are sitting there talking about it and everything. And like, this sucks, I can't believe they left those guys to die. But see, when I watched the movie, because we were all wanting to watch the movie as a group, basically, because when all that went down, and I know Chris, you hear this all the time, there's always somebody that was nearby working
Yeah, yeah.
this or
There was a
doing
lot
that,
of
right?
people
Right,
that kind of knew because
right.
they were there kind of, but not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was I remember watching it on the news, and what always got me was I was sitting there like, you know what? I was like, they're sitting there filming these buildings on fire and everything, but you still hear gunfire off in the distance, right? And but on the news they were kept talking about these contractors, these CIA contractors that left their post to go try to rescue these people and everything. And every one of us looked at you and be like, those guys are fired. Yeah.
Yeah, we got fired. Yeah.
I was like, kudos to them, but they are fired. But
And the wild thing for me, and we'll get back to this, is that I've mentioned it on the show, but my connection with it that was crazy was like the month before that, I met Glenn Doherty.
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah.
then Wilkow got a text, Glenn is dead from Brandon West.
Oh
So it
Lord.
was
No.
long before I met Chris. It's wild, man. I mean,
Yeah.
the connection to that going on is just, yeah, it's insane.
It's a small world when you really think about it in
It's
that community. But getting back to what you asked and everything, the so in August 2017, after watching 13 hours and everything, I found Chris's Facebook page and everything. There was this competition, buy the book 13, no, it was Ranger Way, buy the book Ranger Way, because Ranger Way just came out.
Yeah.
And it was a promo thing to say, hey, if you buy the book, you get your name in a drawing to go train with Chris, right? So I got this email from somebody that we won't mention.
Yeah,
That
we,
yeah,
I,
but
the old
yeah,
publicist.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
oh
So
yeah,
anyway,
she's not
yeah,
worth
right.
mentioning at all.
So got an email and everything, and it says, hey, you won. Gave me all the information. So it was for one day, and there was two things you could have won. You could have won the 1 day or the 2 day, right? So I won the 1 day. So I drove 16 hours from Alabama up to Nebraska, and it was that range 88. Is it 88
88
tactical?
tactical.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, 88 tactical. Yeah, yeah. But
I mean, the owner, the guy that man, he's all right, man. The
yeah,
sheriff, he's all right. The rest of them,
yeah.
but he's all right.
So we go up there, and I'm sitting here excited. I mean, you could have told me I won after watching the movie and all that and reading Range Away because I bought it and read it. Unlike, Rob, bad Rob never reads anything. But anyways, I was excited. I mean, you could have told me that these guys were going to teach me how to drink water for the first time, and I'd be like, yeah, let's go. Right. I mean, I was fanboy all day long. So show up, I'm nervous, I don't want to look stupid and everything. Well, long story short, during the training and everything, because I still had the nerve damage in my arm was still real bad. So my finger kept sticking out. So Boone actually took his hair tie out, put it around my fingers and said, keep them together. But Chris was like, okay, so he got to talk to me and ask me about. I was like, yeah, I was an MP and everything. He says, okay, well, there's your problem right there. So I had to unlearn everything that I learned in the MP Corps because it was different. I mean, it was
Well, it's Army,
dance.
and for all you
Yeah,
MPs guys, it's the Army. I had to unlearn how I learned how to shoot an M9 to it. it's just
Yeah.
different. You just this different way,
Yeah.
different old school way of learning.
Exactly. A lot of the mechanics were still the same, all the triggers, trigger placement, grip, all that stuff. But there was just enough of like, okay, it was enough that I had to unlearn to learn. And I took that mentality from basic training. Anytime somebody's trying to teach you something, don't you forget everything you know and let them reteach you. So it was easy enough for me to do that, you know. So that was cool. Got to do that, and I came back. Well, I finished up the retirement process, and I was like, I'm going to start my company at the time called ADAPT, Advanced Defense Assessment Preparation Team. And I was like, how can I get the name out there for my company about what I do, which would be security assessments, help people with security planning, stuff I learned, and the so I said, hey, let me bring Chris and Boone down and do some training in Alabama. So made contact with your people at
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, wait.
Yeah. But and got it set up, and y'all came down to Alabama for 3 days of
But that was
training.
like a big event though. That wasn't just the training. We have
Yeah.
to go on. It was like a city. It was a little town, but it was like a
Yeah.
city function, and we had to go on stage for some.
No, no, no,
I
no, no, not that one. That was the a few weekends after that
okay,
because
okay,
yeah, no, the one in Alabama, the news reporters did come out because a
gotcha,
lot
gotcha,
of yeah,
gotcha. Yeah, yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
news reporters came out to the range,
yeah.
and the little behind the scenes here for you, Ian. I started noticing Chris was stressed because he had
Oh
a
man.
CNN interview, a Fox interview, and then he had all these local guys coming around, which he loved talking to the local guys, but when it came to sitting down with that laptop on the range when he's trying to instruct and do training, you can see he was getting frustrated. So,
Yeah,
but it is what it was then.
it-
But
yeah, it
um,
sucked. I didn't like. I hated it.
yeah.
Every bit
So
of it.
it was good training. That's where we had one little issue that I don't know if we want to talk about on here, but we learned a lot of lessons about. I did because it was a situation with a guy that was he wasn't too safe with his firearm. So
Oh, no, we talked
yeah,
about it. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
you've
just a
mentioned
normal.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
he just it is. It's where you get tired and we had
yeah.
plenty of great. Israel was there. We had great
Oh
instructors.
yeah,
Me,
yeah.
Boone,
It
Izzy, Mort, Ben was there at the time. I mean, we had it was locked down and it he shot his ass cheek when he tried to
yeah. But
put holster
Oh, I
back
didn't know
up.
that. I thought you were
oh
talking
yeah.
about the guy who was like, "Can I shoot this with my shoes off?" and was
Oh
just
no,
doing
oh,
weird
no, that
stuff.
No, no,
That's
guy's
what
no.
I thought you were
no, that
talking
guy's
about.
batshit crazy.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
not
yeah,
allowed.
yeah.
He's not
Yeah.
allowed to. But no,
No.
this remember as the
Yeah.
end, it was sweaty, and that was
Oh, it was
also
horribly hot, man.
where
God, it was hot.
yeah, but
It
no,
was yeah, it was
I'm a
September and it was hot, no clouds. Ugh.
Alabama, and he
Yeah.
just ended the course, former Air Force guy, and he had a Serpa holster, and we were just doing normal drills, and he was reinserting, and as he reinserted, you get tired. You talk about
Yeah.
sleep deprivation. You talk about
Yeah.
getting tired and how your brain slows down. And I don't know if he didn't unengage his SERPA, it should have engaged on its own, or if he kept his finger on the trigger well when he tried to insert it back in his
Yeah.
holster. But the thing that was awesome, the thing that was awesome, but also is that for those we've had Israel Matos on. Israel
Yeah.
Matos is one of the best pistol
Yes, he
He hasn't
is.
been
instructors
on
in
the
the country.
podcast,
He's
or
been on the podcast, is
no,
he?
he
Yeah.
hasn't. I'm saying
Oh, we haven't had Izzy on? I
No.
swear
no, because
we've
you said
had
he's been
Izzy
on,
on.
and I'm like, he has been on.
No,
Well, we got to get Izzy on. We got to
you
get.
talked about
We talked
Izzy
about
on the
it.
podcast
Well,
because
we
he's
got to
in the
get
book
Izzy on,
Patriot
but
Creed.
I put him in the Patriot. Yeah, his stories in there, but yeah, and I mean he's right. I because we knew you're there too. It was like I'm like keep an eye on this guy, man, and I tried to pull him off a few times, and he's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm good, I'm good. All right, keep an eye on him, and Izzy is right there. I mean, I know shit. I look, Izzy is this far away from the guy.
Yeah.
His hand ready, and it's just one of those things, just bam. And
Yeah.
as soon as I heard it, because I looked down range, because we're gonna finish the line end of the day. I remember
Yeah.
looking down range, and as soon as I heard it, I went like that. I looked down and I went, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And then I looked
Yeah.
over, and Izzy's like, but that's Izzy's been in combat,
Yeah.
Boo's been in combat, Jeremy's there. Ben, Ben has been in combat areas, but he's still. Every one of us, it was handled so perfectly. Nobody, we didn't have any NRA instructor panic. We had no. It
Yeah.
was Izzy. How's the blood? What's it look like? It's a little red. It's a little splotchy. All right, it's in
Yeah.
and out, and that's what it's in and out. I know it is because I said, "Do you see any spurting?" Nope, nope,
Mm,
no spurting. We're good. I said, just pull him off the line. Let's get his pants down. Let's pack it up. He's just got a hole. It's in and out. Let's get him to the
yeah.
hospital. And that's what it was.
Lisa told me because you spent time training Lisa on the range
Yeah,
that
that was
day,
Lisa. We
but
took it Lisa to the
yeah,
side to help her.
but
Yeah.
Lisa even said that it was handled so professionally and everybody was just so calm that nobody really realized anything
Nobody
happened
realized. Yeah, we pulled him off.
until we yelled to the heart surgeon that was in the porta potty, "Hey, doc!"
But it was we packed it, and I remember
Yeah,
as soon as we got him off, I said, Izzy, Ben, you guys got the line. Boone, you good?
yeah,
Good. Roger that. Me and Jeremy, let's get him. And we packed
yeah.
it and got him, and he was embarrassed. His wife, oh, it was hilarious. His wife came in. She was a Air Force colonel to the hospital.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Whatever,
that's
and
right.
she just chewed his ass. And she's like, yeah.
Yeah,
It was so,
I tell
but
you that.
I took over the story, but I thought
No, no.
it was a
That was
wonderful
wild.
experience, man. It was. It was
The
cool.
funniest thing about that was so Chris grabs me and he's like, hey, let's go to the hospital and check him because we gave him enough time to get him to the hospital because that's where Bad Rob got his name on that
Yeah, yeah,
range. But
yeah.
Bad Rob and the Good Rob actually took him to the hospital and everything. But anyways, um, so Chris later on, about probably about 10 minutes later, give everybody time to settle. And Chris went around, checked on everybody, checked on it, Boone, Ben, everybody, Izzy.
And
And
they
he
were
says,
good.
"Hey, yeah," he's like, "Let's go to the hospital." I was like, "All right." So, me and I'm telling them which way to go and everything. We get to the hospital. We go walking in the emergency room. This girl sitting behind the counter automatically knew who Chris was because her eyes just got real wide. And she says,
I said,
"Oh, and how can I help you?" And so I don't know how she knew him. I don't know if she, just was a fan on Facebook or whatever or something. But
I
anyways,
mean, truthfully, at the time, Chris was kind of like everywhere. I get it.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we were sitting there and whatchamacallit, so Chris says, "Yeah, we just sent somebody in here who with a gunshot wound." She goes, "Oh yeah, go right back." So she lets us go right back to these emergency room area, right? And me and Chris are walking around. I'm just like, I don't know if we're supposed to be back here, you
They
know?
were fine,
And
man. You should go back.
Chris is like, "Hey, I'm looking for the guy that shot himself in the ass." And you see this hand stick up like this from like over this counter, and we go over there and check on him. And dude was real good, dude. He came back after he
He
got
did.
released.
He
Yeah,
packed up and his
he
wife
was
brought him
tough.
back out, and we
Yeah.
finished the course. But that I guess Ian's question: how did that make you want to continue to be a firearms instructor?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one, like me and you always talk about, once you find, hey, I need to learn more, you just go to that next level, that next level. There's never the top. You always just keep
Sure.
going. So I want to learn more. I want to learn more. But the key part of that was it was the last day and Chris was talking about, hey, if anybody's bought any merchandise and everything and you haven't got it yet, it's on its way. Don't worry about it.
It was
Just
tough. It
yeah,
was tough
yeah,
keeping
just
up on track
yeah,
of that stuff at
exactly.
that time.
So I go walking up to Chris after the class starts dispersing and everything. I was like, "Look, man, I'm retired. I'm kind of just doing nothing right now because I'm still trying to get my business going thing or my business going and everything." And so I was like, "Dude, I mean, I'll get you caught up." And that was my whole intent, just get them caught up. And so a few weeks go by, like a month or something, because you were training up in Georgia, and that's where we met, and we worked out all the details about getting me everything, all the
Yeah, yeah.
tracking stuff, access to everything. But anyways, so we do that, and it takes. And I tell people this all the time. Lisa was helping me do it, and if it wasn't for Lisa, it would probably still be processing those orders. But the we got those orders caught up, and then Chris says, "Hey, do you want to keep doing it?" I was like, "Sure." And then he's like, "Hey, and it was like a few months later, and he had some training down at Big Three East in Florida.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
he's
yeah.
like, "Hey, and that's when y'all had Gator and all those other
Mm-hmm.
guys
Mm-hmm.
down there."
Mm-hmm.
And
Good guy. Gator's a good
yeah.
guy.
And I didn't realize this, but that's the first time I met Jennifer and
Yeah,
or not
yeah.
not Boone, but Jennifer and Pablo.
Pablo.
And
Yeah.
I didn't even register them at the time. But the yeah, so he says bring the product down here. So while we're out there, me and Chris are kind of talking about how everything's going with training and stuff like that. And he says, "Yeah, anytime you want to come to the course, just come on, bring, you can bring merchandise or you can, I don't care. And oh, going back to the stuff about the getting the products cut up, because I asked Chris, I say, how do you want to do this? He said, don't lie to him, tell him the truth. Just tell him it's our fault.
We're
And then
so
what's the
far
money back?
behind on stuff,
Yeah.
and we are. This does have a. We're going somewhere, everybody. But this,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Jeremy came on, and I was so far behind, and that was a time to where it was just I was still not with really. I was reconciling with Tanya. It was just my life was a mess, and it was imploding. And to be quite honest, Jeremy kind of saved it. He really did. I was like, man, I can't do this. I don't trust this person's pushing me out. I'm doing way too many interviews. I don't want to do these anymore. I'm trying to train, but I can't train. So Boone's taking over all that. So I don't even feel, and he's like, he kind of pulled me out of there. He's like, I got you, man. Let me just get all that shit off your plate. But then, go along where finally just, it worked down to where it was, hey, did all that. I trust you. Hey, you do some firearms instructor? You want to come start
Yeah.
doing it? And that's
Yeah.
how it was. Like, you want to
Oh
come do
yeah,
some
it was
fire
literally that.
instruction?
He's like, "Hey, you want to step on the range and help out?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'd listen to what Chris's instructions were. We'd go down the line. I'd help people from left to right, and it was like every training or course after that that I can make it to, I'd do that. And then it kind of just. And one day Chris says, "Look," he's like, "You know what you're doing. So do you want to, you can do a course on your own if you want to." And then he started picking my brain about things that were in my wheelhouse and everything. So like I tell people all the time, can I get a group of people together and train them on how to do CQB? Yeah, I could train them how to do CQB because I know enough about it and everything, but that's not my exact wheelhouse. Now if you want to say put somebody through a CQB training after they've trained with Chris and people who can talk about the very dynamic, like Ben and Chris could talk about the dynamics of it all, right? I can go in there and stress you out on your mind and put that stress on you and add that next level of training and everything. But for firearm stuff, yeah, I mean, it was literally just learning from Chris, Ben, Boone for when he was doing it for a little while. Um, so it was just
Yeah.
absorb everything and then regurgitate. Now, if somebody asked me one time on the range, they said, "Well, are you a NRA instructor?" And I said, "No." So he just kind of dismissed everything I said after that, and I was like, "I mean, if you're not going
It's,
to listen, I can't teach you."
it's just the
No, yeah,
community. And the last thing, I know it kind of leads into this. We talk about it, and you've got your book out,
yeah, super
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yeah,
I can't even pronounce it.
I would never make that the title, man.
But but that really was based off, and goes back to Ian's with the training. You've been firearms, but your passion, is not the firearms training.
yeah,
You enjoy it. That's what we do. And this is why, and that's why I love this battle line, because nobody really does this stuff unless you're going to go through SEER school or something. But
right,
we offer it, and that's where I was like, hey
yeah,
man, what is your wheelhouse? You've been in Abu Ghraib. You've been in those situations where
Well, Guantanamo, right?
stressing. Well, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Abu Ghraib. Yeah,
I was
Guantanamo.
like, I don't
Thank
think you've
you.
been in Abu
Thank you. You've never
Ghraib.
been. I never been Abu
It's
I
gonna,
wouldn't
yeah, it's gonna
stack
be
him.
stolen
Guantanamo,
valor
man.
or Abu Ghraib. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
well,
never,
I don't know if that's a stolen valor. If you were, I don't, especially at that time, I don't think you'd want anybody to know.
I've
But
never stacked men in a naked pyramid overseas.
I thought you did good. Okay, but that is last thing is that training, and so people out there know because they'll see it, and there's something like I don't know if I want to take it. Then the ones that do take it, they're like, oh my gosh, that was the best thing I've ever done,
Yeah,
and it kind of hurts my feelings because they've come through some of my firearms courses. But tell me, and that's the training that you do now, and you do it with Battleline, you do it on your own
yeah,
and well, just what it is, I guess, more than
yeah.
anything. Let's just do a familiarization right quick and I know we've kept you long, and then we
Oh,
can
dude,
we
you
can
know me,
call
I'll
it,
run
man.
my mouth. I'll run my mouth all night. But
I know,
No,
I
this,
know,
this is
I
what we
know.
do here, man.
well, basically, I call it operating near extreme stress, and it kind of developed from back when I was getting ready to go to Iraq because I was like, guys, we're learning all these things about how to send lead down range and all this stuff, but I mean, even in training, when people were getting hot, tired, and everything like that, they just started rushing through the training and making mistakes and everything. So I'm like, if we're getting in a combat situation, and you start seeing all these reports come about it, like, hey, a bad decision was made here. This person could have done this, but blah blah blah. And then when they're coming back, even law enforcement officers do this because you know, there was a police officer that he shot a suspect that had a knife charging at him. The guy dropped the knife and fell to the ground, and then the cop shot him 18 more times. And I was just like, You didn't have to shoot them 18 more times, but
But it is. It's
yeah,
just a stress people handle it. It is.
right, exactly. So
It does. It messes
it,
your brain.
exactly. So I was like, how can we teach somebody to operate on, near extreme stress without actually, killing them, because we can't shoot live rounds at people. But but also how can we attack it? So I took what I knew about what some people call neurolinguistics programming, but it's actually neurolinguistics communication, because programming is where you try to program yourself not to smoke anymore, right? Neurolinguistics communication is how to control, you tap into that subconscious and that critical thinking and everything all at once, because those are different parts of the mind. I talk about it in the book, but it's about communicating with those different parts of your brain, or your mind, so you can control that stress, process and make the best decisions you can make in the moment. And then it even goes into afterwards, like how do you decompress, how do you deal with everything that's happened afterwards or during. But anyways, so taking what Chris said, and I know what you said kind of hurts your feelings and everything, but really,
Yes, it does.
what I do is not going to work if they don't know how to operate the tool that they have in their hand. So once they learn that tool in their hand and the techniques that of the body movement and stuff like that to get into the room, get towards the danger, get away from the danger, whatever. Once they learn that, now we can teach them. All right, now we're going to take you from shooting a static target in front of you, to we're going to put you under physical stress and mental stress and make you make those hard decisions. The best one we've done so far was in Oklahoma up at Eddie's
Hmm.
place at Iron Gall, and that's the one where the On Me podcast guys went
Yep,
to.
yep.
But we took Eddie's airsoft shoot house up there and we blacked it out completely. So you know what I'm talking about, Chris.
Hmm.
Ian, it's basically it has no roof on it. So if you want to, Chris, there's photos of Chris walking around on the beams up there.
When I
So you
could,
can,
I can't do that
right,
shit
you're
anymore.
right. But so we covered that, blacked it completely out, and the all the rooms except for that center room, Chris, that's in there, all the rooms in those two hallways, it was kind of like a fun house setting. We had laser lights going, we had fog going, we had just ridiculous targets in the room for them to have to shoot, no shoot, make decisions on it. Like red means shoot, green doesn't mean shoot, bad guy means shoot, good guy
You're trying
does.
to overstimulate. That's what
Right,
you're doing.
exactly. So we had a couple props in there, like and I'll mention it here again, graphic stuff, people. But we had a image or a scenario set up in there. We had this mattress laying on the floor. It was covered in blood, and we went to like Walmart and got this little girl's dress and covered it in blood and everything. So it looked like this was a rape scene kind of thing and the whole thing was, as they had to make their way through the room and evaluate the room, um, it ramped their stress up. And it worked so good for two of the guys because they didn't understand why they were crying at the end, like tears coming out of their eyes and everything. And when we did our walkthrough, because this is something Chris taught me, never freaking teach anybody anything and then not let them walk back through. You know what I mean? You got to go back and say,
Well,
what did you do in this
yeah,
room?
AR. It's just an
Right.
AR. Yeah.
By the way, yeah, Op 4, what were you doing? What did you see? Yeah. So we're doing all that. And when they got to that room, they're like, yeah, this is it. This is because they started getting emotional then, you know? Um, but anyways, the last room we had our Op 4, which is opposing force, which was Chad in a wheelchair and Pablo in the room together, and they had to do a scenario for that person to decide who to shoot, right? And I told Pablo and Chad, never tell me what the scenario is, because I wanted to know. I didn't want to know if that guy made the right decision or not until Chad and Pablo told me what the scenario was. So it was kind of a learning experience on my end too. But so once they got through all that chaos, they get to that room, they open that door up, and they have to make a legitimate decision between whatever the scenario is going on. Who do I shoot? How many times do I shoot them? Are they still being aggressive? Whatever the case may be, right? And the most of the people that I'm every one of them except for one guy that he was one of those guys that kind of knew everything, but they all got something out of it. They were just like, this is freaking awesome. One of the things we do to tap into the mind is you have to take away certain senses from them. So we had them wear the headset, and in the headset we had like all kinds of noises, screaming, a countdown meter going, just multiple different things. It's just very distractive. It had math problems going off in their head, or in their ears. And it was just to overload their thinking process. But we also we made them for the physical part, Chris. We made them run
I mean,
from
run,
the
yeah, yeah.
yeah, from the range to the shoot house. And once they got there, if they had a bottle of water, I take it from them and I made them eat 6 saltine crackers, right? So I can dry their mouth out and everything, right? And I'm just making them uncomfortable, you know.
Didn't you have like a smelly shirt, or we didn't?
Oh yeah,
Aren't you use that?
we
Because
had
the
this rag. Yeah,
smell and not. I mean, that's messing with
yeah,
people's smells is really it triggers the
uh,
brain a lot.
yes. We had 2 rags. One of them was just doe and fox urine, and the other one was just smelled like just straight death, and it was just we'd put it around their neck and it's hanging down in front of the shirt. So when you're sitting here trying to get through all this and you're breathing in deep, all you're breathing in is that nasty smell. And the like again, it was just to overload their senses and everything. Uh, we we do this in different ways. Also, when like if we do this is actually something we're working on planning. It doesn't matter if anybody hears it because they're not going to really be able to be ready for it. Is we would say, okay, if this is your shooting hand, right? We always do go the stop blade, be able to put the tourniquet
Yeah,
on
yeah,
yourself and everything like that. And then most people in that training would say, okay, put your arm behind your back. And then now you have to try to draw your weapon and engage the target, all this other stuff, right? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to put the TENS unit on them. And this is something that, and let me backtrack. For anybody who's thinking that we're just torturing people for fun, we don't do that.
they
Yeah,
know, man. No,
well,
and they know that people that's come through the courses
Yeah, they
we
choose to do
do.
this training.
Yeah, you
yeah,
come in and no, and some people, some of them want that. They want the,
oh yeah,
but you can't. And I tell people this, that you can't go out to a range and learn how to get in a gunfight just by going to a flat range and shooting. And I don't care how many times you draw quick or going out and doing your USCCA stuff, all those little things that you're doing, those smells, the sights, the sears, they're going
yeah,
to pull your attention away from what you need to focus on. And that's what's going to happen. So that's why you smell something. Oh, that stinks. Well, there's that brief second that you
yeah.
just, the split second that took you off what you needed to be thinking of. And you have to
Exactly. And
tunnel all
that's
that out.
yeah, and
And
that's what it is. I mean, and like I said, we're not torturing them because all the instructors that say, "Yeah, I want to do this with you," like
you don't
Pablo
need
would
to
say,
explain it, man. You don't need to
"Well,
even explain that, dude.
yeah, I just say we go through it too." So when I say I'm putting a 10 unit on you, we do that training also.
Yeah, of
We
course.
experience it. It's the same thing where Chris says, "If they run, you run," and I'm like, "Dude, I'm
Yeah.
like 240, fat as hell. You want me to run?" He's like, "Yeah, you run. You're here, you're running." But anyways, um the going back to it, yeah, we put the tens unit on them. So now we would turn that tens unit on and that tighten up the muscles and it creates a little bit of pain and discomfort. Now they have to put that tourniquet on, and when they kind of do that simulated one
Sure.
twist and lock it in place and we evaluate it, then we actually turn the tens unit up one more notch and it locks down harder. And the reason why is because no matter anytime they try to engage the muscles in that arm, it's going to lock down hard and keep them from moving that arm. So now they actually have to experience pain while they're trying to engage that target with their offhand that they usually don't shoot with. So that's part of the ones training. It's like you stress that mind out, you put them in those realistic scenarios as close as you can with actually hurting them, and you try to teach them not only make decisions in the fight, but what happens after the fight. What's that cool down period? How do you de-stress yourself? How do you recover from that? And that's the biggest part of it. That when we do static training on the range shooting targets, we're like, hey, great job, blah blah blah, and it kind of gives you that boost. But after the actual real fight's over with, everybody's just like, you know, everybody's walking around in a daze trying to figure out what the hell just happened, and they have to process those emotions on their own. So we just trying to teach them how to
Well,
deal with that
and
stuff.
it's good just in life itself, man. And
Yes.
well, listen, a lot of those people that come out for those, they understand and that's what they want, and it's wonderful. And at the end of the day, too, it's it's a memory. I don't think guys that people understand. Even when you go through hard things as a group, it does build that camaraderie and it builds those memories together, and then you always
Hmm.
remember that. There's not one person that hasn't come through a hard course that even if they didn't like it, there was a point where like, man, that was yeah, I remember that. I remember that
Yep.
sucked. Well, you're gonna remember that for the rest of your life. And then when you're 30 years from now, you're like, man, yeah, that really did suck. Man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And it's and that's why the training and that's what brought Jeremy is that there isn't a lot of that out there unless you go through SEER school. in the military. And that's what wonderful with Ben is Ben has been through SEER school. So it's another battle line guy because that's who helped you with that was Ben came out, didn't he?
Yeah. Ben
Ben,
was, yep,
Ben, and you run it, you know that shit better than me. And
yeah,
it makes for a wonderful, wonderful course. And it's not just shooting, which is
yeah,
great, but there's other aspects of it. And you guys have that experience, man. So
yeah,
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'll be honest. There's a few other things I wanted to get
Yeah,
into,
yeah, let's
but
get into
I
it.
no. We'll save it for another time. I mean, I always feel like 2 hours is the sweet spot,
Yeah,
man.
I didn't
I can't
realize
do. I'm not. I know he's far more successful podcaster, but I can't do the Sean Ryan
you
thing.
want
It's
to do
like
Sean
five
Ryan
hours.
6 hours?
I, there's actually a ton of other things I want to get into, so we'll do it another time, man. We'll definitely do a
Hey,
part
you
two.
just let me know when and where I'm there.
Yeah, there's
Maybe
stories
we
that you've
can do it
told
in.
me. Yeah, there's stories you've told me that like I wanted to get into, but we got into a lot here. So yeah, we'll do a part two at some point. But
Okay.
yeah, for the audience, definitely pick up the book. We'll have a link to that.
The book.
BattleLineTactical.com,
Sa
of course. Yeah, I'm not going to
sank
attempt to say it.
sank it sank it take a neck and
Isn't it like
stick.
Phantasmagoric or
How do
something?
you say it?
Phantasmagoria. That's it right
Yeah, that's what I
there.
thought it was.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Phantasmagoric,
there a movie
but
with
it's
called Phantasmagoric, a horror
No,
movie?
or I'm
Or
sorry.
Phantasm.
Yeah.
Phantasm.
No,
That's what
yeah.
an old 80s horror movie.
Phantasmagoric is the name of the book.
Oh,
Phantasmagoric is it's the very
it's
first cartoon ever made, animated
it's
cartoon.
sank it, psych it. Got
it's
it.
a
All right, got
ridiculous
it.
title. I will say that completely.
Ian does not
But
like the title. Let's go put that
I
out
don't
there.
because
Ian
as
hates
like a marketing guy, you want to keep it simple, like 13 hours, the Ranger Way, the Patriots Creed. No one's like, and the thing that doesn't help you too is Jeremy Mitchell's a common name. So if I go on Amazon and type in Jeremy Mitchell, I'm probably going to get a few bucks. And if I want to type the title, I'm not going to be able to type the title because, dude, I'm a great speller. I can't spell that fucking word. So
Well, I tell you, speaking of that, that thank you to Chris and Tanya because they got a bunch of copies of the book,
Oh yeah,
and Chris is putting them in
we
the shop
are
and
we and
everything.
I love doing that. I do that with any John Borg's book. Who we had a couple other guests. Gosh, we did it with Jessica. And I'm
Yeah,
happy to do more stuff
yeah, a
with
lot of the
Jessica's
early
book.
guests, I remember like Truth Seeker. I don't
Uh,
think we did
we
his,
didn't do a
but
Truth
yeah,
Seeker, but
yeah.
it was she worked the riots. Why do I not? Why I
Oh,
can't
I know what you're
remember her
talking
name?
about because I was going to say
It's
also
awesome.
L. Christian Bustler. You did his, the guy who did
Yep.
the
yeah.
flag
We do.
ceremonies.
Yeah,
We do need to
and
do
they
a.
do well, man. I mean, so we always do a package deal. If we get signed, I think people do dig signed books. People out there that
Yeah,
collect them, and to me, I like it. And if
we
you've
need,
got signed book, I'll partner with you. And it's just it's a wonder. I don't know. It's a wonderful way to help others promote. And since I have the platform, why not, man?
yeah,
And you and
we
I
need
are
to do a
easy.
Tonto's library or something, and
Man, I would love to do like when Ian, those
yeah,
guys at SoftRep used to do the Crate Club, but
They did the
I
book
don't
club for a
the
while.
book
Yeah.
club. I think that would be amazing, but I just think the logistics would just be crazy hard to
It's a
figure out.
lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, guys, check out as I said, Battle Line Tactical. There's going to be always courses coming up, and
Yep.
yeah, we'll do a part two because I have other things, but yeah, man, this was really good. There's a lot of stuff that we got into here.
Yeah.
Next week we're gonna have on the guys from Photonis, which we haven't had in a while,
Right
and
on,
then
well,
it'll be a
yeah.
couple weeks without Chris. I know, but yeah, as
Oh
always,
yeah. Shit.
leave us any feedback, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Most of you guys are listening on Apple. We could use some good reviews, man. If you guys leave a review, really appreciate it. But thank you as always, guys.
That's all for this episode of Battle Line Podcast. But we're always posting new content on social media. Follow us on Instagram at Battle Line Podcast and on Twitter at Battle Line Pod. That's an order. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes up every Tuesday. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. Believe in yourself. Face all challenges head on. And as always, never quit.